All right, good evening, everyone. Calling to order the Board of Education meeting for November 12th at 6:03 p.m. We'll begin with roll call. Chancho Shore. Here. Graziano. Here. Holtzman.
Here.
Lemieux.
One more time, here.
Lung.
Here.
Ray is here, and Vogel is absent tonight. I notice we have several Boy Scout troops in the audience. I wonder, would you mind coming forward and just leading us in the pledge? I typically lead the pledge, but would you guys, if you're in uniform, would you mind just coming and standing in front of the dais and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? There's two more, so you're not the only one.
Yeah.
Four, five.
Yeah, come right up here in the front of the dais. And if you would start us off.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Scouts. Appreciate that. Next on our agenda is our favorite time with student and staff recognitions. Dr. Tucker.
Ray, all of our directors and this full house, thanks for being here. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Now, I know our students can do better because you had like a 3-day weekend not too long ago, right? Good evening, everyone. Okay, thanks for joining us tonight as we kick off every board meeting celebrating our outstanding students and staff. First recognition, let's thank all of the students and staff at Gold Rush Elementary and Thunder Ridge High School for their amazing artwork in the foyer area in the stairwell. So let's give them a round of applause. As everyone knows, Veterans Day was yesterday, and we celebrated, and we did a marvelous job of celebrating our veterans, our men and women who have served or are serving this great country with pride. So we had a huge celebration here in the district, and we had things anywhere from celebratory events and assemblies to inviting local veterans and active service members to our schools for breakfast or lunch or a big program. So we have any veterans or active duty folks, please stand. Let's stand and let's all recognize them. Woo. Thank you very much. Also, we created a quick video. I shouldn't say we, I should say the communications department put together a great video that captured some of our great Veteran Day celebrations. So let's take a look at this video.
Good morning, Mammoth Heights.
Like most days here,
How you guys feeling on this Veterans Day?
Mammoth Heights is feeling great. They're also feeling patriotic. And like most days, Brett Knickerbocker is making sure they're not feeling too hot or too cold.
Keeps our building warm when it's really cold out.
The work of a building engineer often goes unnoticed.
Now there's lots of levers and valves to shut things off in case you got a bad leak.
But make no mistake, Brett loves the school he helped open 12 years ago.
The main thing that keeps me coming back is the people.
Any of our active or veterans who have served in our armed forces, please come on up. And boys and girls, give them a big hand. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Brett's school loves him too.
Thank you so much.
From 1989 to 1993, I served with the 2nd Marine Division, served in Desert Storm and Desert Shield.
Mr. Knickerbocker. Mr. Knickerbocker is our building engineer, and he's a former Marine, and this building would not be the same without him.
Brett just hopes that he's helping build in this generation a greater appreciation for those that served.
Well, I hope that it helps them to appreciate the world that they live in.
Like the other honored veterans, Brett feels great.
I'm a little embarrassed, but also proud that they're taking the time to honor the people that serve this country.
Yes, another round of applause. Again, we had these types of celebrations going on throughout our great district on our 91 campuses, and it's always a pleasure to see our students and staff, but especially our students, interact with our veterans. So again, thank you, thank you, thank you. Now we're going to move on to recognizing some more of our outstanding students and staff. As you know, the board adopted our strategic plan back in September. We have 6 outstanding themes that will help guide our district for the next 5 years. One theme that I want to talk a little bit about tonight, and you will in fact hear more later on, it has to do with our social emotional learning and support for students. And what we're trying to do, we're trying to empower students across our district to build greater empathy, to build greater agency. Last year, we celebrated the founders of the OASIS program at Thunder Ridge High School. Great example of a student empowerment in helping to address some of the mental health ills that we're dealing with, not only in our school district, but across this great county and even America. Tonight, in celebration of that theme, I want to recognize our students from Renaissance Secondary School. I understand you all are getting ready to travel to Italy, is that right? Okay. Is Miss Guerin here? Is she here? Okay, come on down. Now, I understand that you all were one of 4 of, 350 schools that qualified under this National Design for Change, is that correct?
Yes, so we entered the contest, and there was over 350 schools that entered, and we had 4 teams that were selected to go over and be ambassadors. It's pretty exciting because we are going to be interacting with over 70 countries. There's going to be 10,000 students that are at the summit there, and they're going to get to tell their story and their journey, and we're pretty excited to go.
And Ms. Guerin, what I'm really excited about, that these young folks are going to go to Italy, they're going to take some of their own learning, they're going to learn there, and obviously they'll come back and share in what type of capacity throughout the district.
Well, we invited you guys to come and interview them when they come back, because I'm sure they're going to have stories to tell. I don't even know what to expect. I just know there's going to be lots of students and lots of interacting, and I can't wait to hear the stories from some of the other countries that are going to be represented there. It's pretty exciting, and it's all actually related to social emotional learning, because their projects all started from empathy. So.
Outstanding. So would you be so kind to ask your scholars, our future Design for Change ambassadors, to come and share a few words with us?
That would be spectacular. Come on up, guys.
There you go. So just tell us how you're going to change the world.
So there's multiple groups that were chosen from our school, finalists. So there's a lot of people around the countries that are chosen to go, but the finalists are chosen to go to a global summit. And I think there was about 5 or 6 groups from our school that got chosen to go. And so my group, what we did is we wrote and recorded a song, and we partnered with Hyperthet Recording Studio in Parker, and it's a song about how you can change the world, how to make it better, and we chose Goal 17 because that's ownership, and then the song was about all the goals, so to help make the world a better place.
Outstanding. Would any of your colleagues, classmates like to make any comments? Sure, okay.
So our group, we had several other people involved. Ryan. Involved in our group, Carson McCartney, one of them here. We were working on a few different goals as well, like Collins over here, involved in the homeless population. We raised funds to create care packages for the homeless, and we wanted to take a slightly different route to reach out to that population. We reached out to several fire rescue agencies in the area to see if they would be willing to distribute those care packages out on the street where a lot of those people are and might not have or might not want to get access, like in a homeless shelter, so they could still have access to those supplies if they wish. And they did let us do that, so we did get those supplies out there, and they are out on the street, which is a pretty big accomplishment, I think. Additionally, we were able to make, what was it, over 100, 200 care packages to distribute out to the community.
Okay, very good. Someone else? Okay, what's your name, young lady? Caitlin?
Yes. So my group focused on goal number 3, which is good health and well-being. And that could be like physical health, mental health, all the health stuff. And we decided to focus on mental health. So my group developed a website where people in your community or around the world can communicate and talk with people of the like similar mental health issues. And because a lot of people will like get really nervous or intimidated by like talking to a therapist or seeking help, so that this website would help them get that push to get help. Yeah.
Director Lemieux, any comments? Yeah.
So I just want to speak on behalf of the board. Thank you so much. This is such important work, and to have students being part of the solution is unbelievably impressive, and you just show us there is so much hope in the future because of the work that you're already doing now. So thank you and congratulations on this award. Good job.
We're going to take a quick picture, and then Mrs. Guerin you can hand out their certificates later or not? Okay. Okay, very good. Okay, another round of applause for Renaissance Secondary. Okay, next we're going to recognize some students from the Douglas County High School as Principal Cap is here. Do we have our students here from Douglas County High School? Oh, they're coming through. Okay, very good. This will come on this way. Folks, this is your award-winning Douglas County High School Winter Guard team. Is that it? Let's give them a round of applause. Good. I'm going to slide over here and let the coaches introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about what this honor means, and then obviously we'll hear from a couple of our students who want to talk.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Chet Aliga, and I'm the band director over at Douglas County High School. Excuse me, the Douglas County High School. I am not the color guard instructor. However, I am one of the people that helps this program come alive. And what's great about this group is last year they got 3rd in state. The year before that, we didn't have a competitive winter guard at all. So for us to pull our resources together with our neighbors over at Castleview High School, we were able to turn around the program very quickly. And that is largely in part to my colleague here to my right, Mr. DJ Stevens.
Hello, everybody. It's good to see you guys here. These kids worked amazingly hard last winter season. So I just want to give them one more round of applause because they are incredible. Last season, we started the season off in a lower class, and we went to our first show with a minute done, and we got bumped up a class. Then we competed at a national scale and made finals there. So we got to compete on a whole national scale, and they did really well. So this team defied all odds last year, and I couldn't be more proud of them. My goal as a coach is personal growth and personal excellence, but a state title doesn't hurt, you know. So I can't believe that we're getting recognized, and I appreciate you all so much.
Now we're going to pass the mic around, and we'll ask you all to talk a little bit about, if you're okay, talking about what that high finish, was it third in the state, I believe? So this high finish, what does that mean to you?
Oh gosh. Okay, my name is Paige. I'm actually from Castleview, but I joined because I heard that it was a really good program, and I had a lot of friends in it, and I had heard really good things, so I was really excited to try it, and I'm really glad I did it. It was a really fun season, and I met so many amazing people, so I'm really glad I did it. It was a really good time.
I'm Jenica. I'm also from Castleview, and I wanted to see what competitive winter guard would be, and I'm glad I made that decision because it's such an awesome sport, and getting third in state kind of gave you more, like, you worked hard for it. Yeah.
My name's Lily. So getting third in state for me was like the best feeling in the world. And I think, like DJ said, I made a lot of personal growth throughout the season. Like if I hadn't done winter guard, I would be like in tears right now, afraid of talking in front of people. But yeah, so I think the program really helped me open up as a person and as a performer. And I really enjoyed last season.
My name is Rileyana. I'm from CV, like Jenica and Paige. And for me, the fact that we placed so high at state, I didn't really experience that during the fall season, because as well as our band did, we didn't end up cutting it. But this last winter season, I was really scared, and I didn't know what to expect because I was in a whole new place with a bunch of surprisingly really cool people that I didn't know, and that I wasn't really expecting what happened. And really getting third place was just a culmination of all the hard work that I saw everyone putting in on all the nights that we practiced and all the blood, sweat, and tears. So yeah.
Hi, I'm Danny. Getting third at state, honestly, like the place probably really wouldn't matter to me because DC's color guard has always like been my home since I've been in high school. But getting third actually, like, kind of like Rileyana said, it's like everyone's hard work had like paid off, and then people were able to see that.
Hi, my name's Bree, and I guess that getting third place at state kind of meant to me that like all the hard rehearsal hours and like all the hard days and all the blood, sweat, and tears, it was just like put in for something that means something to people. And I guess that really meant a lot to me. And plus I got to meet all these awesome people that I know are going to be friends like for the rest of my life, so that's super cool. And I guess like after we got a medal, it wouldn't have really mattered if we got a medal, but I'm just glad we did because like we got to like experience that together.
I'm Jade, and what getting third at state meant to me was just validation for all the hours we had put into this and everything we had done for this, and building our program and having people recognize that we're here to be good and win.
Hi, I'm Jessica. Third place to me was really about showing the growth of the color guard, because last year at the beginning of the fall season, I was the only person that returned from any previous season. So everyone was brand new to the color guard and everyone was new to the whole program. So being able to go from only having one person that has spun with the color guard before to being able to place in any division at all is like a really big deal, and I'm just happy to see the growth from it.
Hi, I'm Katie. I was only really able to do winter guard my senior year,
with DC, and it made my year so much better. And getting third was just kind of like the little cherry on top, because I saw the growth of everybody on the team from the first rehearsal all the way to state, and it was just amazing for everybody else to see that hadn't seen the rehearsals and the frustration and the tears, to see the growth that we had in the place that we could get.
Outstanding testimonials, right? Yeah. 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 Okay. Before we take a quick picture and get you all the certificates, I'll certainly ask Director Chancho Shore if she has any comments. And yes, she does, because she knows probably all of the students here. But a question I always ask the groups, do you think I could make the team? Okay.
I want to take a minute to also highlight the incredible work that they have done this year. They have first places, several opportunities this year in several competitions. It's a very young guard, and I just want to give them a hand, but also I want to take a moment to recognize these two men. Standing up here, I happen to know they spend 5 to 10 o'clock at night and Saturdays and Sundays working with the band kids and with the guard kids. And this is a testament to the kind of people who work with our kids. So let's give them a round of applause. Thank you.
Okay, let's take a quick picture. Very good.
And he just had babies.
Congratulations.
2 months. You've lost all the babies.
Very good. Okay, and continuing with our theme of providing social supports for students and making an impact, we would like to take this time now to recognize a very, very talented fifth grader from Northridge Elementary School. Would Principal Katie Lynch and student Natty Ekabong please come forward? Well, she won't talk, but I didn't screw up your name, did I? No. Did I pronounce it? It was pretty good? Okay, good. All right. So, Mrs. Lynch, tell us a little bit about this special award this special lady received and how she's going to make an impact, not only in Douglas County, but in the world.
So Natty is one of those students that even if I walk into her classroom and go to take a picture with her, she's totally embarrassed and mortified. So the fact that she's standing here in front of you today is a true testament to who she is as a young lady. So the Colorado Rockies have an essay that you write on somebody that makes an impact for you. And so Natty wrote a wonderful essay about her grandma and just how special she is and how she makes an impact to her. And I think Natty's one of those students that is a quiet leader who's always doing the right thing, is always kind, who's always looking out for one another, and always has this just wonderful, beautiful smile on her face. And so what I expect from Natty moving forward is that she is going to continue to make an impact. And I love that she was called forward here to be recognized because it's always that quiet impact that goes a long way. And this one puts her forward in front of everyone. And so I told her, I said, she should be proud of herself. I'm super proud of her. And I promised her she wouldn't have to talk. So there you have it. I upheld my promise, right?
Yeah. But you are a Rockies fan, right? Very good. Director Lemieux?
Congratulations. And I get your fear of speaking. It's really hard for me. Actually, I was shy, and I think your writing is going to take you a long way because you can speak volumes through the written word, and clearly you've had some teachers that have mentored you to this amazing award. So congratulations on behalf of the board. Good job.
Quick picture. Okay, we're down to our final recognition. Before we do our final recognition, parents, I'm going to ask our audience to please give our parents, grandparents, and family supports of these outstanding young people. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you. Okay, our final recognition for this evening is for an outstanding, absolutely outstanding young man who really may not need much of an introduction. He's done some tremendous work in helping students really build resiliency, build agency, and what he's trying to do is help our young people overcome some of the fears and concerns that they have simply by being young people. And did a great job back on September 20th at the Pepsi Center. So without any further ado, with 8th grader Kendall Mybus joined me up front along with Cullen Hessendegger, assistant principal from Rocky Heights Middle School, and Lori Key, counselor from Rocky Heights Middle School. Not only did Kendall address over 6,000 folks on September 20th at the Pepsi Center as we launched our outstanding strategic plan, he also got the lead in Shrek, the musical. Wow. So, great speaker, a young humanitarian who's giving back. You know, we talk a lot about our young people are not giving back. They're not in tune to social and emotional learning. We challenged that tonight, didn't we? Folks, didn't we challenge that tonight? Huh? Give these kids another round of applause. So, Kendall, we want you to tell us a little bit about your recent Eagle Scout project, and then we'll hear from your administrators, okay?
I'm Kendall Mybus. I'm an 8th grader at Rocky Heights Middle School, and I have anxiety and maybe depression, but that doesn't stop me from trying to help other people. I wanted to do an Eagle Scout project that impacted people like me who suffer from mental diseases like these, and so I made calming jars for kids like me and distributed them across the district to make a difference.
So I just, Kendall's just an amazing individual. He's one of those kids that have, like our last person that came up here, last student, he's a quiet leader. And I think the authenticity of what his challenge is to make these things that help him, but also it's one of those things that when it starts at a grassroots level and people see that it's something that other people can benefit from, it just grows. And it doesn't surprise me that he's been asked to do so many different things because he just is one of those individuals that people want to join. And I see him as kind of my silent warrior because Kendall battles every single day to be at school, to be present, to do a good job, and he's just a wonderful individual, and I'm just so proud of him that he's taken this opportunity to make a difference.
Yeah, I feel kind of bad I have to follow Kendall after he spoke and after watching him speak at
at the Pepsi Center. I'm not going to be near as eloquent as he was there. So when we prepare our young students to be members of society, which is what we always talk about as educators of what they're going to be like and what we want them to be like, we talk about them being resilient, them being able to turn struggles into strengths, them being caring, them being kind. Kendall is the true embodiment of all of those things that we want for our students to be. We can't be more proud of him and all of the stuff that he has done for our school, for the students at our school, for the students of Douglas County. He's going to do great things in the future. We were joking with his parents before that we're going to start Google searching him now and seeing all the things that are going to come up about him. It's all going to be great. So we are super proud of him at the school. He is truly, when we think about Rocky Heights, the type of students that we want to release onto the world because he is going to do great things.
Outstanding. Director Lemieux is going to surely make some comments, not only speaking for herself, but the entire board. I remember almost 2 years ago interviewing for this job, the question that the board members had for me, it was not how we're going to raise student achievement. It was not how many football games we're going to win. It was what we're going to do to help students develop greater awareness for themselves, how we're going to provide additional resources for students to help them build greater independence, build greater agency, and of course, additional mental health resources for our students. Kendall, we've talked before, great job with those common jars to help address it. It is my common jar, and I use it twice a day, so I'll get it back. But yeah, at least twice a day. Thank you, and I'll turn it over before we take a quick picture here. Director Lemieux.
So I needed one of those 4 years ago. But if you wouldn't mind, do you mind reading what you have on those calming jars and how it works real quick before I make my comment?
So pretty much what it says is to breathe in and out slowly while watching the contents in the bottle after mixing it up. And it just asks you to notice what you see, what you hear, what you smell, and how you feel.
Thank you. And those are great strategic opportunities that people have when they're having anxiety attacks. And I know they work. And so thank you so much for sharing that with other kids who struggle in that way, because it really, truly makes a difference. And I can definitely speak on behalf of the board. When you spoke at the Pepsi Center during the strategic plan, we were floored and honored to have you speak for the kids and for what you've done. So thank you, and thank you, Mom and Dad. You did good. Appreciate it. Congratulations. Nice job. You know how important this is to us.
Okay, folks, this will wrap up the student and staff recognition portion of the board meeting. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Dr. Tucker, and again, thank you, parents and all students. We'll give you a chance. I know it looks like you're leaning out the door, so we'll give you a chance to make that transition, and then we'll go on to our next agenda item. Okay, next on our agenda is the acceptance of the agenda. Is there a motion to accept our agenda? Motion to accept our agenda? Oh, I'm sorry, Director Lemieux?
Before we begin, I know last week, at our last meeting, we had considered putting JLCBD up for discussion on our agenda, and I'm noticing it's not on here. Could you please explain that?
Sure, thanks, Dr. Lemieux. So at the last board meeting, we did indicate that policy JLCDB would be placed on the agenda. And board directors, as you know, this policy that we currently have allows administration of medical marijuana on school grounds by a student's primary caregiver, but restricts school staff from administering. Since that meeting, though, the district received notification that a complaint had been filed with a state regulatory agency against the district. And because the result of the investigation of that complaint will be relevant to our future review of this policy, the board will postpone that until further notice or until there's the investigation has been concluded. So that's why that was removed from the agenda tonight. Again, a motion to accept the agenda.
So moved.
Motion made by Holtzman.
Second.
Seconded by Chancho Shore. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, let's go ahead and vote. Chancho Shore.
Aye.
Graziano.
Aye.
Holtzman. Lemieux.
Aye.
Lung.
Aye.
And Ray, aye. Next on our agenda is the student comment time, and this is our time that we've added for this year to really be able to hear and from our students. And so I was looking for Zoe. Is Zoe in our audience? There she is. So Zoe Zizou is coming up. She is our student chairperson for our student advisory group. And Zoe is coming to share some comments and thoughts specific to some things that are on our agenda, but other things that she may want to share with us as well. So Zoe, welcome. Good evening.
Thank you, Director Ray. Commenting on today's agenda, a positive environment makes all the difference in a school. It sets the climate for how staff and students interact with each other, shaping a student's learning experience. Staff members' needs are being met, and staff working in a positive environment greatly impacts students' morale and attitudes about school. At my school, Rat Canyon, among many others, we have a week dedicated toward helping one child, Wish Week, and it helps to make the school environment positive and brings everyone together for a unified purpose. To boost teachers' morale, we also have a teacher recognition for outstanding teachers at our school, which teachers and students both enjoy doing. Having a link crew or a link crew adjacent is a great idea for introducing elementary school students to middle school and boosting the morale for students going into a new school. I've been a link crew mentor for now 2 years, and I've gotten the opportunity to see how firsthand it helps ease students into going to a new school setting and help students get to better know peers, helping to ease any anxiety about going into an unfamiliar environment. And switching to the topic of the complaint system and the chain of command, we have talked about the complaint process quite extensively in Student Advisory Group. Students feel most comfortable going to a teacher since they have more contact with their teachers every day and know them on a more personal level than counselors or administration. When the issue is not resolved or the problem is concerning a teacher directly, we felt some students know where to go next, but that's not common knowledge for all. So maybe developing a process or making it more clear to students how that process works. Thank you so much.
Great. Zoe, thanks so much for setting the tone for us tonight. She covered a couple of future agenda items that we have to discuss tonight. So thank you, Zoe. Were there any other students? Yeah, you can give her a round of applause. Thank you. So next on our agenda is public comment. The board values hearing from diverse viewpoints from a broad spectrum of citizens throughout our community, specifically on any issue that impacts the educational needs of our students. 2 policies guide how public comment to the board is received. Policy KE, public complaints, and board policy BEDH, public participation at board meetings. Board policy BEDH explains that since the board's responsibility is setting policy for the school district, members of the public should direct their comments on policy matters. Board policy KE outlines the process for responding to grievances and complaints and explains that the board believes that concerns and grievances are best handled and resolved as close to the origin of concern as possible. Therefore, we encourage the proper channeling of concerns. For example, concerns that involve a child should begin with the teacher, then the building administrator, then the director of schools, chief academic officer if it's a curriculum issue, assistant superintendent, and superintendent before appealing to the Board of Education. To maintain the decorum of mutual respect, I would ask that speakers refrain from using individual names in an offensive manner, as this only distracts from the issue of concern. Throughout the board meeting, the board follows Robert's Rules of Orders to guide it in participating in an orderly and fairly conducted meeting. Under these results, if a director calls for a point of order, all discussions and comments should stop so that a determination can be made as to whether a procedural rule or board policy has been violated. Therefore, if a point of order is made while public comments are made, a speaker should stop until otherwise directed to continue. Each speaker tonight is allotted up to 3 minutes to address the board. Please know that this is our time to just listen without engaging in discussion. However, your comments will be reflected upon as we discuss the agenda item that you are addressing. So as we now proceed to public comment, those of you that have signed up, I will call both the speaker and also the person following, so both of you can come forward. All right. First person on the list is Autumn Brooks. After Autumn Brooks is Mark Porter, actually Mark and Marley and Sarah. So we'll have Autumn, Mark, Marley, and Sarah, if you guys would all come forward to the front row, and then we'll start out with Autumn Brooks. Good evening.
And I am here to talk to you about education with certain aspects that may be coming forward to the school board later. I am with CoMama, and I'm also with SACO, both of which are now advocacies into describing and helping people understand our laws and cannabis for medicinal purposes. First and foremost, in any BOE, the first thing we should think about is our children. Underneath IDEA and FAPE, we are to allow our children to be at schools in the most least restrictive environment in order to ensure that they are learning. That being said, if the board and the district is incapable of meeting certain needs for students, they have to be able to provide that elsewhere. Right now, Clear Creek County, where I'm from, passed a JLDBC policy, and it is the most comprehensive in the state. I have watched a child go from the brink of death because their medications were killing them to full of life and able to participate in school again. My own child will be eventually. He himself is a level 1 ASD child and still exhibits severe behaviors. These behaviors cost the district money. When I had to have them sent elsewhere because the district wasn't able to provide, it costed them $2,500 a day plus transportation. I'm not saying that that could be a problem for you guys now, but in the future, as more districts sit there and pass this policy to include all of our children, it will be. Lastly, I'd like to discuss the difference between pharmaceuticals and whole plant cannabis. Pharmaceuticals, 3 children, same condition, you're gonna have 3 different meds, probably more, different dosages. It's the same way with cannabis. With one child with one condition has success with CBD, another may not, and they need the addition of THC. And then still further, still another child will need THC over CBD. All of these children need something and have a need met that is met by this medication. If they can't go to school because they need somebody to bring them their medication and they can't, and in 5 minutes that means that they're brain damaged, we have a problem.
Very good. Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Brooks. Mark Porter. After Mark is Marley.
Hello, my name is Mark Porter from Castle Rock. I was planning on coming here tonight to speak because this policy JLCDB was supposed to be on the agenda. It's been removed for whatever reason, 16 plus months, just another roadblock as far as I'm concerned. I'm really at a loss for words. I'm pretty disgusted by the whole thing. I don't know why it's even taken 16 plus months, but here we are. Worked out great, I guess. You promised President Ray it would be on the agenda 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks prior to an election. Pretty convenient. And we know that you knew about this prior to your comments at the last board meeting. So that's a serious problem. There's no honor at all. You guys don't want to pass the policy? Vote. Tell us you don't want it. Let me know who does and doesn't. Everything's secret. Everything's private. Everything's lawyers. My daughter's not a lawyer. We discuss everything here, public, because we haven't had a private session with anyone. So I really don't even know what to say. Just keep regurgitating the same old stuff. It's what the board keeps doing. Back at us, over and over and over again. Meanwhile, my daughter still goes unprotected at school. She just wants to go to school. And you guys are hindering her from doing that. I can see it doesn't matter. Hasn't mattered for 16 plus months, so I don't know why it would matter today. I wish it would, but it doesn't. Not to you guys. Prove it if it does. You guys have this tag, unity of purpose. Right? That is the tagline here. Do you guys know the purpose of unity? That's what I question.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Marley Porter, and then after Marley is Sarah.
Just tell them you want to go to school, Marley. Yeah, baby, come on. Come here. Come on. Just tell them you want to go to school. Come on.
Sarah, if you want to go ahead and speak, and then if Marley wants to speak after you, she can.
I hope that you all see how difficult this is for Marley. She just wants to be a normal child and go to school, and this is very emotional for all of us, as you well know. I want to speak tonight and just remind you all of the reasons why this can be done. President Ray, I do appreciate you reaching out to me about a face-to-face sit-down. I definitely appreciate that and hope that we still get the opportunity to speak to each other. To remind you guys also that we don't need a change to any policies for the drug-free school zones and communities. Medical cannabis is protected and is not included in the drug-free school zones and communities. So that is a null topic that I think some people have brought up. There's also the Rohrabacher-Farr amendment that we've mentioned before, which definitely protects everyone involved. This is how cannabis businesses even exist in the states, or else the federal government would have squashed that a long time ago. The Rohrabacher-Farr amendment states none of the funds made available in this act to the Justice or Department of Justice may be used with respect to the states of Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, District of Columbia, Florida, Hawaii, Illinois, Iowa, Kentucky, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, Mississippi, Missouri, Montana, Nevada, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New Mexico, Oregon, Rhode Island, South Carolina, Tennessee, Utah, Vermont, Washington, and Wisconsin. All of those states, Colorado included, to prevent such states from implementing they can't use funds to prevent such states from implementing their own state laws that authorize the use, distribution, possession, or cultivation of medical marijuana. So that is federal. We also want to remind you all that this is being done. It can be done. It is being done in the District of Columbia. For one student, the District of Columbia has 9 minors in the whole District of Columbia that received a medical cannabis license, a card. One of them goes to school, and they implemented and created a policy within 10 days so this child could go to school safely. And they're right next to the federal government. So the federal government is a moot point. We just want to remind you all of that, and that there are many other reasons why this policy can be passed and should be done. Regardless of any investigations, there are no laws that prevent you from putting it on the agenda and voting.
Thank you, Ms. Porter. Marley, did you want to speak? No? Okay, Juan family, if you would come on up. So we have Amber first, Brad, and then Benjamin.
Good evening, Board of Directors. I'm just going to go ahead and proceed on as if our policy was on the agenda. And I wanted to kind of read the points that we had made when we were passing the HB 18-1286 at the Capitol. The intention of the law is clear. So there are many circumstances which prevent a parent or caregiver from getting to school to administer medical cannabis to their child, creating an undue burden on already overtaxed parents. Number one, many parents are not able to leave work or leave siblings at home in order to go to school to administer medicine. Number two, parents raising special needs children are burdensome with medical costs, and they cannot afford to hire a caregiver to go to school for them. Number three, special needs children are often so disrupted by seeing their parents at school that they can no longer engage the rest of the school day. Number four, in an emergency situation, children must have access to rescue medication in case of a breakthrough symptom, which can happen unexpectedly. In many cases, such as seizures, a breakthrough is life-threatening and cannot wait for treatment. Waiting for a parent or a caregiver to get to the school endangers a child's life and increases the chance that they will end up in the emergency room or die. 5, in order to control symptoms during the day, a child who takes cannabis may need to keep a steady level of medication in their system at all times, just like any other medication. Otherwise, they risk severe medical complications. This often requires dosing in the middle of the school day. And just kind of to keep in mind just that pharmaceuticals don't work for every child. So what do we have? If we have cannabis, that's an option. It's a viable option. We've shared the research on that for our children. That should be also reason enough. Just a few of the other things, just to remind you all that we have school personnel protected according to some rules, laws, and guidelines according to the state and federal level. We do have Jack's Law already in place, as you know, so parents and caregivers can come on school grounds. We do often hear about drug-free school zones in the Communities Act. I just want to remind everybody that that is in regards to unlawful possession or distribution of illicit drugs by personnel or employees on properties. Okay, so we're talking about lawful medication that our children can use here. So that does not apply. And then we've got the Nurse Practice Act, and then the Rohrabacher-Farr Amendment. Those things, Clear Creek County passed their policy. And so we've got some federal protections there that I know Sarah Porter had expressed. So thank you.
Thank you, Amber. Brad, after Brad is Benjamin.
Good evening, Board of Education. Brad Wan, Highlands Ranch. We're in month 16. We are very, very disappointed in your decision to remove this from the agenda. We know that on the 17th of October, you received the information that you're stating. You had it before, let me say that again, before October 22nd. Please be honest with the public. Before. Very simple. You didn't have it after. The email you sent to us, President, was not accurate. You did not make your statement and then get the information. That is not how it went down. And if that is how it went down, then you have a problem with someone else in the room. You've had it since the 17th of October. I'm ashamed of you guys. You're paid. This administration is paid to take care of this board and to do the right things for kids. Each and every one of you, all the way to the back of the room on this wall. It is your job to do the right thing for kids all the time. I would like for you to email me how much work you've done on behalf of my son and other kids in Douglas County when it comes to this policy. My guess is it'll be goose egg. My guess is you didn't lift a finger. My guess is you didn't call anything outside of your little bubble in this building. I would love to see it, and I would love to praise you for your actions. But my guess is the actions were none from day one, from August of 2018, from the first time we spoke. My guess, it's nothing. We still have an issue. We have an issue that the fact that the medication that sits on an ambulance under the policy that you have placed for my son is to call 911. South Metro Fire District has said that this is all the medication they carry for him. He's allergic to it. You have a note from Children's Hospital. You have created a circumstance of danger. I've got no response. Your one single employee right here has not responded to us. You have set up a circumstance of danger for a student and not a care in the world. You have a way out. Pass the policy. Put it up for discussion. Educate yourself. It's absolutely unacceptable that you're putting politics first. Make a statement to try to shut up a community before an election so that you can get your way. People need to know you knew about this information before you spoke. You knew. We have proof you knew. And yet, you used it as a political wedge in the community on social media, sending out press releases to them, emailing them over the weekend to all your supporters so that they can jump all over social media. Shame on you. It's dirty. It's nasty, and it's unacceptable.
Thank you, Brad. Benjamin Wan. And after Benjamin is Corey Nelson.
Hello, board members. Today, I have something to show you, or not show, but share, or at least, and this is from a book called A Mind Unraveled, and this guy who gets kicked out from his college because he was having so much seizures. And in the part of the book I want to show you is kind of like it's kind of like you as the blind man and me as the guy who's on fire, or the man who's on fire. And so I want to show you share you an audio from the book that I'm listening to on Audible. And so here I go, hopefully.
Two men. One is on fire, the other is a blind man who has never heard of fire, but who's holding a bucket of water. The burning man yells to the blind man, "Throw the water on me." And the blind man replies, "But I'll get your suit wet." The burning man screams, "I don't care, throw the water on me." And the blind man says, "I don't think you know what you're talking about. You don't want to ruin your suit." So the burning man says, "Please throw it, I'm on fire." And the blind man replies, "What's fire?" The burning man screams, terrified of dying as he tries to define fire. And the blind man says, "Calm down, I'm not going to do anything so long as you're so emotional." And the burning man tries to be calm, but can't. because he's terrified, knows he could die, and knows the blind man doesn't trust him. He shouts and screams, and the blind man repeats that he must calm down. So the burning man is left wondering which will come first, death or the blind man finally listening. I glanced around the room. I'm the burning man. All of you are the blind man. I'm telling you why I'm scared, why I'm emotional. I'm begging you to throw the water. But you're not hearing what I'm saying.
So all I have to say is that when I heard that the agenda was gone from the entire thing, that disappointed me. I trusted from day one when I first met you guys, and then I went through day two, went like, we'll gotta keep going after this. It's not gonna end, so I just thank you for, but
Thank you, Benjamin. All right, Corey Nelson. After Corey Nelson is Doug Lemieux.
Superintendent, directors, good evening. Stray, congratulations on your victory. During the campaign we had some really good experiences. One of them was over at Thunder Ridge High School. We got a chance to talk to a lot of the students. It was really, that dialogue was really very insightful. And one of the things we talked about, I tried to talk about, was this issue that we have, this epidemic in our school district involving vaping. And it was very clear in talking to these students that they just don't get it. They just don't get how dangerous this vaping is. And it's very clear in talking to them that a lot of it is the scandal, but it's very clear in talking to students that it's happening in every one of our schools. And it's happening every day in the bathrooms and other locations, and we're just not getting them the help that they need to stop this addictive and very dangerous process. I'm here because I'm very anxious to hear from the superintendent and his announcement of what's going to be happening. But briefly, I just want to mention that not only is it important for the school district to take this opportunity to recover the costs of dealing with this epidemic and maybe spending more money on high-tech sensors that can be put in the bathroom, even things like getting Rich Payne a canine unit to go search the lockers in schools for this product. We have to separate these kids from this dangerous product any way we can to get them the help to deal with these addictions. And we have an opportunity to join this mass tort litigation. But it's not just important enough not to only join it, but also join it timely, but also make sure that we have legal counsel representing the school district who can control and push our case forward. Because we're a bellwether plaintiff. #1 location in the entire United States. That tells us we can be in the driver's seat for this kind of litigation if we have our counsel representing us who is in the driver's seat as far as lead plaintiff's counsel. So I'm anxious to hear what's going to happen, but I'm hopeful that we're not going to just find some little small, law firm that's friends of somebody here locally. Yeah, I like local attorneys, a lot of them, but they may not be the best choice. And so I'm hopeful that we're going to find a law firm to represent this district and get us in there and be in the driver's seat to be a bellwether plaintiff, and so we can maximize the potential and save our taxpayers millions and millions of dollars and make sure we have the full amount of resources available to help our kids, whatever that might be. So I'm anxious to hear what has to be said, and I want to let you know that this is very, very important to our community, and we've got to help these kids because we're #1 in the nation. I'm hoping you're going to take advantage of this opportunity to address this epidemic problem because we are ground zero here. Thank you for your time.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Doug Lemieux. After Doug Lemieux is Antoinette Kinkerman.
Good evening, President Ray, Board of Education directors, Dr. Tucker, district staff. My name is Doug Lemieux. I'm from Highlands Ranch, and I thank you for this opportunity to speak in front of you tonight. In regard to past and current application and future board policy and procedures, I'd like to thank Directors Lemieux, Ray, Vogel, Holtzman, Graziano, Lung, and Chancha Shore for giving of your time and talents to the work of Douglas County Schools. This is no small task, as you well know, and your work has benefited the district's teachers, administrators, staff, and most importantly, all of its students. I want to especially thank President Ray and outgoing directors Lemieux and Vogel for your work over the past 4 years. You've been an inspiration to so many people and created a bright future for public education in Douglas County. I encourage the returning and newly elected board members and along with Dr. Tucker and staff, to continue developing policy and implementing procedures that benefit public education. Stop looking at me, my dear wife. Finally, and most importantly, I want to thank Director Lemieux, Anne Marie, for your passionate work on behalf of public education these past 4 years. Being a former teacher, you advocated to increase teacher engagement by eliminating overly burdensome processes, by increasing pay, and by just being a face that they could talk to when they saw you. You have always been open and welcoming to them, and we've always left events late because you have never stopped to talk, and you've always stopped to talk to people when they wanted to talk to you. You've attended countless number of school events to meet students and parents, to validate and encourage their participation. You attended legislative sessions and spent countless evenings on our couch learning about school education law so that you could do the best job and be the best director you could be. Your tenure will be defined by your validation and encouragement, as well as your bulldoggedness for the truth. Our family is so very proud of you, and we know that one of Hannah and Jack's greatest joys, and I know yours too, was receiving their Highlands Ranch High School diplomas from you. I love you and thank you for all you've done to support public education, and especially supporting all capital A, capital L, capital L district students. And from your children, sweet mom, and the application of board policy and procedure during your term on the board, thank you for sharing your light, love, passion, and energy to the incredible teachers, administrators, and families of Douglas County. To say that we are in awe of your resilience would be a great understatement, as you have climbed mountains and fought injustice in ways many of us only see from our TV screens. You have given us hope for our kids, that they will be cared for and loved. The future of DSD and the world are brighter because of you, and we cannot be more proud to be your daughter, son, and friend. We love you so much. Cheers to this chapter and all that follows. Ann and Jack, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lemieux. Where's the red roses? All right. Antoinette Klinkerman. After Antoinette is Gary Colley.
Hey, good evening. I'm Antoinette Klinkerman. I am an English teacher at Thunder Ridge High School. I am here on behalf of the Douglas County Federation members as part of the Douglas County Federation's Education Research Series to share some independent research on positive and supportive school culture, strategic theme 3 from DCSD's strategic plan as requested by Director Ray. In your packets, you will find research from a variety of sources across our nation and across the world about working conditions, how educators need to feel valued, trusted, and empowered to collaborate, and how these conditions affect teacher turnover. There is also research on attracting educators to our district and what may or may not be effective when it comes to salary incentives, including merit pay and career ladders. I'd especially like to bring to your attention the research around the collaboration and the positive climate. Direct professional collaboration, including team teaching and time to talk with colleagues about practice, has a direct correlation with teacher and student relationships and with school climate and culture. The Douglas County Federation respectfully requests that you consider the research around positive and supportive school culture, strategic theme 3 from DCSD's strategic plan when you make policy decisions that affect our students. The DCF wants to partner with you on this, and as we give our students voice and choice, that's also good for us teachers too. Live stream viewers and audience members can find the research on our website at douglascountyfederation.com. And thank you very much for your time tonight. I do have to add, however, that the last time I saw Kevin was at a Halloween party, and I won't tell what he was wearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Klinkerman. All right, Gary Colley.
I would like to also give my heartfelt thanks to Anne Marie and Wendy, who's kind of left early, I guess. You know, I've been at a lot of board meetings since late 2010, and to see what you three did when you came on the board in 2015 as a minority group and what you dealt with and stayed strong, that's really admirable. That's not what my public comment's about, but I want to make sure I wish Wendy was here to just thank you for your service. What I want to talk about is on the complaint process that's on the agenda tonight. I appreciate the fact that they did add a level 4 complaint that the Board of Education is the final authority. But I do want to address something here that seems to be maybe a sticking point, where it's the informal conference at the school level where almost everything could be resolved with effective leadership. But there's seems to be kind of stuck in how to handle that. I'd like to point out, and I didn't bring a copy, but I'd be willing to leave this with you. Kathy Lees is a parent that, with the CAC, we were trying to resolve a concern that couldn't be resolved at the school level. So then it went to the next level, the DOS, and then the next level, the assistant superintendent. But there's no procedure, no process for how do you figure out the concern in the first place. So it doesn't turn into be a dismissive attitude or, well, we've heard that, but there's no documentation. So what I'm suggesting to you is this still looks like there's a challenge with the informal conference. This lays it out. It talks about a parent concern form. And this is the one Kathy was asking the district to consider when they're looking at developing a complaint process. It also talks about in here, by the way, it's submitting a form that describes what is the concern. So let's say the concern is addressed pretty quickly. Good, it's done, but it's also on record. We can keep records. We do that all the time. The next step then is eventually if that can't be resolved, then it might go to the principal. And I don't see the principal as being, the principal's in the informal conference because it's not in the resolution here. The next step from the informal level is to the director of schools. The principal should be the level 1. And then because our district is big, we have directors of schools, we have an assistant superintendent, we have a superintendent. But if it's serious enough of an issue that everywhere along the line, there's a documented process that would resolve the conflicts a lot sooner and take away a lot of the angst out of the community that there's no willingness to work with the community. I've seen it too much in my years with the CAC. One last thing, the CAC, as of tomorrow, I went before the school board on November 13th of 2013 to introduce the CAC. And I'm introducing tonight that the CAC is only focused on helping parents and community members address their concerns properly. If there's a procedure like this in place, there's no need for the CAC or anybody outside the district, just highly qualified professionals being accountable and doing their job. So if you'd like to see this, I'd be happy to leave it. Do you want me to leave it with Tammy?
You give it to Tammy. That'd be
All right,
great.
thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Colley.
Great, thank you.
All right, very good. Well, this brings our public comment to a close. Thank you, speakers. Next on our agenda is the adoption of the consent agenda. Those items that are on that agenda include approval of capital improvement projects for both the Highlands Ranch area, Ponderosa. These are packages that are a result of, again, our 5B initiative that just passed. Also on the consent agenda is an approval of agreement regarding school park facilities, an IGA, if you will, with the Cielo Metropolitan District. Also on the consent agenda are the first quarter financial reports and also a supplier spend from Houghton Mifflin and personnel changes. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second. Motion made by Holtzman, seconded by Graziano. Let's vote. Chancho Shore. Aye. Graziano.
Aye.
Holtzman.
Aye.
Lemieux.
Aye.
Lung.
Aye.
Ray, aye. Okay, consent agenda passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is to approve the unofficial minutes. Is there a motion?
Move to approve the minutes. Second.
Motion made by Graziano, seconded by Director Lung. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Chancho Shore.
Aye.
Graziano.
Aye.
Holtzman.
Aye.
Lemieux.
Aye.
Lung.
Aye.
Ray, aye. That passes unanimously. Next on our agenda is a study work session First item is around our strategic plan. And directors, as you have noticed, we are first of all doing some overviews from each strategic plan theme. And that gives us some depth of knowledge and a foundation of understanding the themes. And then in our future, we will begin looking at the action plans that are associated with each theme. So with that, I'm going to invite, I think, Marlena Gross-Taylor to the podium to introduce our guest tonight and our presentation.
Good evening, directors. Tonight's theme is all around positive and supportive culture, and this is really surrounding the adults that work with our students, all stakeholders. So without further ado, I'm actually going to pass it along to our strategic theme leaders, Ian Wells and Paula Hans. They led this team to create this theme, so they're going to talk a little bit about the why, how it came to be, and as always, we'll be back to share about the action plans. There's still a different team is working on those, but this really set the tone for the work that that the action teams are doing. So, Ian, Paula?
Good evening, directors, and thank you for having us tonight. We'd like to start first and foremost a big thank you to Directors Lemieux and Vogel for your service. We appreciate the opportunity to have worked with both of you, so appreciate your time. All right, so we are the positive and supportive culture team, and we're here to talk positively and supportively about culture with you all. We're actually very excited. There's a large group of us behind, and I also want to say thank you for moving us up on the agenda because we do have some elementary children here on the school night. So I know you were a part of that opportunity, so thank you very much. So as we sort of talk through, I'm going to skip that slide because you can't really read it, but it's the flyer that we're all used to, and we are the purple right in that middle, which we're going to talk to you in detail about today. Obviously, when we first sat down, we took the priority student outcomes as a focus for what we are doing and how we approached coming up with the objectives that are within our theme. Okay, and so as we looked through those, we really focused on some changes in practices and approaches. We talked a lot about what tangible things could happen to change behaviors. And honestly, we really decided and came up with the following. Oh, I'm sorry. Before I get to the following, I'm supposed to introduce everybody. My apologies. Our sponsors on the cabinet were Mr. Reynolds and Ms. Rader. We appreciate your support. Our team was comprised of the following individuals. Myself and Paula Hans were tabbed to kind of lead the process here. We had Jackie Feely from Professional Development. We had Holly Harone, our Staff Wellness Coordinator. We were joined by Jolie Jones, our Director of Stone Canyon Outdoor Adventures. We were joined by Lori Lacombe, our Healthy Schools Coordinator, Chris Lawson, our IT Product Manager. We had Tammy Lanson, our Measures of Student Learning Coordinator. We had Jan Reagan, our Lead Graphic Designer from Communications Department. And then we had Matt Van Dusen, Director from O&M, was comprised our team. So when we sat down, we really started to ask a question. And the question we were asking, and we realized, is that the adults in this organization ultimately impact kids. And if you are able to tap into what the adults' needs are, invariably they are going to tap into what kids' needs are. And so we realized that the impact they had, we wanted everybody that worked in DCSD to be happy, proud, and openly celebrate working in this district. We realized that the theme came about when we started looking at the data. And the data many of you have seen from employee and community feedback sessions, from strategic planning sessions, from the TLCC district-wide survey. We looked at Corona Insight survey. We talked about staff retention rates, many of the things that you all have been discussing over the last several years. What we really began to realize is, well, let's just be honest. We wanted to confront the brutal facts. If you read that survey pretty clearly, there was some pretty telling information. I'll be really frank, we asked permission to confront those facts head on, and both Dr. Tucker and our cabinet celebrated that and said, yes, go for it. So what we figured out was the following, maybe. We realized that ultimately there were three avenues to which we wanted to approach this. We recognized that the high-performing environment was incredibly important because a high-performing environment is hopefully filled with high-performing and happy people who ultimately are then able to practice their craft to the best of their ability. And so we recognized that we wanted to come up with objectives that tapped into all three. So tonight our plan is the following. We are going to actually introduce the objective. We're going to share a couple different things. But before we do that, I did want to stress one thing. I want to read you a quote because we're talking about supportive, positive and supportive culture. And notice that we're not interchanging the words climate. Okay? The reason culture is used, school culture, I'm going to share a quote kind of to best celebrate the difference between the two. School culture is the personality of the group, which is influenced by the leadership, community, the school's history, and the unwritten rules people abide by. Climate is the general attitude of people in the school relative to specific situations. So when we looked at it, that's actually by Steve Gronart and Todd Whitaker. And ultimately, we had to focus on culture. So tonight, what we are going to do is we're going to share with you all three of those objectives. The individuals that you are going to see behind me that are going to be a part of this presentation, they have their boots on the ground, and they're in the actual trenches doing the work. What you will see on the slides when we get to their section is we have a question that's up on the slide. That question was really kind of a guiding question, but it's also up there to provide context for you all as directors. So with that said, I will do the first. The first objective was to define and implement a high-performing environment for all DCSD employees. We also have started with phase one of that, which is to define some and develop agreed-upon core values, behaviors, and collective commitments. A long time ago, many of you may have remembered the pillars that we had. That was a foundational aspect for a lot of people in our community, and some of our staff members were still asking about some of those pillars. So there's a little element that is based on that. So what I'm going to introduce to you, what I'm going to do is introduce to you two of our principals. I'm going to introduce you Brian Rada, who is a veteran principal of Fox Creek Elementary School. And I'm going to introduce Miss Erin Kylo to you, who is a brand new principal to us at Ranch View Middle School. She's not a brand new principal, but she's new to our district. And I'm going to allow them to have an opportunity to discuss a high-performing working environment.
Mr. Rada, welcome. Good evening.
Thank you. Directors, it's good to see you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and to just share with you a little bit about culture and the importance of that. I'm excited that we've got some Fox Creek kids that are going to be addressing you tonight, and their task is to share with you some of the roles and responsibilities that they have that have been empowered by Douglas County employees to make a positive culture. And Dr. Tucker, I wanted to say thank you for letting me and my kids hang out in your office and miss some of the more lively elements of the meeting today so that we were ready to roll. What I really wanted to share with you is that I came to Douglas County in 1993. And at that time, as an experienced teacher, I had a few options, and I had had conversations and interviews with Douglas County, and Cherry Creek, and Boulder Valley. And at that time, I knew that Douglas County was where I wanted to be. And the reason was that there was a value on a family atmosphere that cultivated a positive culture where I was encouraged to grow professionally, take risks, and know that I was supported. That ethic and value within our district really began to permeate my teaching and my classroom environment. And I began to understand the power of a relationship and a positive, safe culture as a foundation for kids to maximize their learning and to have the most effective teaching that I could. As I got more experienced within the district and I was able to visit other schools, other classrooms, I really saw this amazing effect on the culture of the school and what kind of impact it had on the achievement of kids. And it really began to solidify my beliefs that job number one was a positive culture that was safe and encouraging for kids to really take those risks. When I came into school leadership, I always felt that that was the essential part that I needed to get right as a leader before we could move on to some of the more nitty-gritty hard work of improving teaching, improving learning, and ultimately improving achievement. I have led through lots of varying times in Douglas County, and we've held on tight to what it means to have positive intent, believe in one another, give the benefit of the doubt, and to move forward together in a unified fashion. And that's my hope for this work that we're doing with the action team, the strategic plan. I can't thank you enough for having this be an integral part of our strategic plan, because it's the value that everything else, I believe, is laid upon. So thank you for the time. And Dr. Tucker, we each only took one piece of candy. So,
Thank you, Mr. Rado. Is it Keo? Am I saying that right?
It is Kylo.
Kylo.
Yes.
All right. Welcome to our district.
Thank you. I hope after 16 years of being here, I can do this without notes, but I did bring my notes today. So, yeah, Erin Kylo, the very proud principal at Ranch View Middle School, and I'm really honored to be here tonight to talk about the positive and supportive culture that I have felt from the moment that I've walked into the district. I moved here from Minnesota in July, and I have thoroughly enjoyed every single day and every single moment. It's always something completely different, and I welcome that. So it's really exciting. I want to share just a little bit about my journey and what got me here today. My husband started working in Denver 2 years ago, and so he was commuting back and forth. And I had a principal position in Minnesota that I just did not want to leave. I felt very proud of the work we were doing in Minnesota and what I was leading as a principal. And I just couldn't do it. I didn't want to leave. And so after 2 years of watching him fly out on Monday and come home on Friday, I thought we have to do something different. So I started my research, and I reached out to people that I knew in Denver. I did lots of digging into data, and I knew right away, it became very clear that if I was going to make this move and leave my position in Minnesota, it was only going to be part of Douglas County. So I feel very fortunate that that dream has come true. I've been part of strategic planning in other districts, and I know how much work and time goes into it. So I'm very, very happy to see that this is part of our strategic plan and going forward. I think it's important work, and I look forward to leading it in my building. The work that we do is all about people and environments and practice. So the question that I was to answer tonight was, what have I done already? And I felt like I've hit the ground running with this theme in mind. I started digging right in with one-on-one visits with my staff, really getting to know and learn about Douglas County, learn about Ranch View, learn about the good, the bad, and the ugly, get their feedback. And I was able to structure our workshop week in August based off of that feedback that I've received from teachers. And we talk about our big rocks, and the big rocks that are important to them today are the same things that were important to them 20 years ago. And so we are able to work on those things. I believe our work is in the small things every day, but it's also in the very large things that we do. So some of the large things that came out were relationships and trust and honesty, involvement, community. So that helped us launch a very successful school year so far. From there, it went into the small things that we do as leaders, to positive notes on the cars, to the first snow day. I guess you call it a snow day. I didn't really call it a snow day, but it was getting warm apple cider and getting cookies and being there for the staff. One time we had a whole conference room filled with balloons, and inside balloons were little things that the teachers could pop and win. Goose Award stands for Get Out of School Early, so an administrator covers your class. It was awesome to watch the teachers cheat, the middle school teachers cheat so that they could get a prize. They wanted that Gene Day, and so they won it. So it's in the little things, but it's in the big things that we do as leaders. I like to make people smile, but it's about who we are as leaders, and I'm so proud to be joining the district at this time. As we motivate and continue to cultivate a positive environment for our staff, building trust, being authentic, being honest, listening to staff, sharing kindness, showing empathy, and really loving on our staff. If we take care of our staff, they'll take care of the kids, and that's what it's all about. I tell my staff that a school is just a school made of bricks and mortar. It's the people inside of it, our wonderful, amazing students and our wonderful staff, that make it what it really is. So I'm very blessed to be a small part of the work that we do in Douglas County, and I'm extremely proud that positive and supportive culture is a theme in our strategic plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kylo.
Good evening, directors. Paula Hands, Public Information Officer. I'm going to apologize in advance for my voice. I'm feeling a bit under the weather. So the voice isn't quite there tonight, but I will get through this slide for you. We're now going to talk about Objective 2. Earlier, we talked about this theme really focusing on people, environment, and practice. Objective 2 is all about our people. Our team spent many, many hours looking at our current state of positive and supportive culture and where we truly could improve. So Objective 2, as you can see, aims to enhance engagement for all DCSD employees through mutual respect and positive recognition. I want to draw your attention to the word all. All 8,300 staff members should be involved in our strategic plan and be part of the process, making sure systemically it is across the board for all. This objective truly aims to help each and every staff member understand his or her impact on our students every day. In order to do this, we must celebrate. We must celebrate our individual staff members. We must celebrate our teams throughout the district and the amazing work they're doing for our students. This is truly about recognizing our people. It's about recognizing what they value, and it's about celebrating all 8,300 staff members and the contributions they make to our students. Next up, it's my honor to introduce Susan and Kim. They will talk to you a little bit about positive and supportive culture in Douglas County School District.
Thank you, Ms. Hans.
Thank you.
Good evening. I am Susan McKenzie, and I feel so honored to have the opportunity to speak to you guys. It feels weird to stand in one place because I'm a second grade teacher, and you never stand in one place when you're teaching with little children. So it feels kind of odd for me. But I would like to talk to you about my experience at Northridge Elementary, and I think of it in concentric circles. I'm going to start with my classroom. So what I see as the most important thing I can do is offer students a safe place where they can take risks emotionally, socially, and academically. And what I know about us as people is when we feel safe, we'll take a risk. And when I'm stretching kids academically, I'm asking them to take a risk. So I need to build in some safety for them. So I think it's best practice that I work first on a relationship with students. So my teaching position gives me authority, but my real authority comes from a relationship with my students. So for example, I teach in Discovery, so I have gifted kids who sometimes this is the first opportunity that they've really been stretched. And it's kind of unnerving for them. I've had kids go, I think you've made a mistake. I'm supposed to be in the goldfish group. Like they assume that they should be in the highest group, and I have different groups. So for an example, the students are working on some rigorous math, and one student started crying. So I just stop what we're doing and say, I'm wondering what's going on for you. It looks like you could be frustrated. She says, yes, I am. So what an opportunity to create community for my students and say, have any of you ever felt that way? They always chime in and agree. And then that is an opportunity where I can create a sense of community and commonality, and they can see they can make mistakes and take risks. I'm going to pan out one more at my school level. I believe the same is true for the staff at Northridge Elementary. The efforts of my two administrators have created an amazing culture of positive, I keep putting climate and culture together, but it's a very positive environment for us. And I believe it is because they've done the same thing for us. Teaching is a craft, and I can take risks because I know that I have the opportunity to take those risks knowing I'm loved and cared for who I am. So our motto this year has been humankind be both. We believe that you have to have Maslow's before Bloom's. So kids' basic needs need to be met before I can ask them to climb up the ladder of rigor. Especially if students have social or emotional overlay. If a student is having trouble, as a whole school, we try to look at underlying issues. We think attention seeking is really equal to connection seeking. So we're always looking behind behaviors. We do that either by conversations with our administrators. We have a lot of support staff, our PLS. We have vertical team meetings. We have regular team meetings. Today, we had an amazing assembly for our students that I have to add in. It was a gentleman, Jonah Berger, and has a form of cerebral palsy and was wearing leg braces. And he talked about his disability as a challenge, not a difference. He normalized it for the students, stating that we all have challenges and some of them are more visible than others. He also stated that it matters in the way we receive each other's challenges, and that should be with compassion and respect. When we share our challenges and receive support, they're less daunting. So I'm going to pan out one more with my administrators that I feel supported on all levels. I don't feel a gotcha model in teaching. I feel a I believe in you model, and I can stretch myself and take risks. I also have the privilege of being on our building leadership team, where one of our main focuses has been creating a sense of safety and community for staff. Our teacher leadership creates a voice for staff that in turn fosters community for our staff. Our celebrations, our successes are celebrated the same as our students are. Then at a district level, and that's where I'd like to thank you. You guys have righted the ship. It was really some difficult years, and now I feel like we are back to what matters for kids. We are back to best practices that are standard-based, that are cross-curricular and incorporate higher level thinking, and I thank you so much for the support you've offered us, that you offered my administrators, that they can in turn offer me. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McKenzie. Ms. Herman.
Hello. Nice to see you all again. I'm Kim Herman. I'm a professional learning specialist at Clear Sky Elementary. And to be quite honest, I think Brian and Aaron and Susan said so much more than I could, but I'll try to add a few thoughts to the mix. This initiative really speaks to me because my role in the building is, among many things, primarily kind of the holder and the advocator of culture in the building. The professional learning specialist, which used to be called back in the day the building resource teacher, when it was originally designed, it had about 5 different hats. But when I kind of rolled into the position and was being trained, it was clearly communicated to me that culture and climate was a big part of my role, keeping tabs on that, advocating for it, building it. So to be here tonight to talk about culture and about this initiative is truly a pleasure for me. And thinking about my role, what I do on a day-to-day basis, in addition to all of the other work, is trying to keep my ears and eyes in the school, keeping abreast of all staff, and really advocating, celebrating, and finding ways to value them. I try to notice when they are being successful and celebrate that with them. I try to notice when they're struggling and stand beside them and support them. And this work that I do is all about trying to value each and every member in the building. And this reminds me of a theme that I used to kick off our school year back when I joined Clear Sky in 2012. And that theme that year was Ubuntu, which is from the Nguni language in Africa. And one of the definitions you can find online is a person through other persons. I tried to explain that to my staff as something like, because you see me, I am. My role in the building as a professional learning specialist is to see each and every person. And I think it's critical that every staff member, and really I would say every human being, has a strong desire and a need to be seen. So Ubuntu, I see you. Ubuntu, I notice the hard work that you're doing. Ubuntu, I notice your mood today. Ubuntu, I notice the things that you're excited about and I celebrate with you. Ubuntu, I notice your struggles too. And as a PLS at CSE, I try to, I make it a goal every day to notice staff members throughout the building. I see how hard they are working to make a difference for our kids. I try to notice their triumphs, struggles, because really, it's not about, well, we know it's not about the money, right? it's not even about the rewards or the gifts or the small things that each and every school tries to do to celebrate their staff. It's about being acknowledged. I don't necessarily need someone to give me a jeans day, although that's quite nice. I don't need someone to give me a gift card. I don't even need them necessarily to solve the struggle that I'm having. I just need them to acknowledge it. And what's interesting about acknowledging is I think back to a former principal we used to have here, Chris Neville. He started at Clear Sky as our assistant principal and then was the principal over at Sarenhoek for a couple of years. And one of the things he did with us at Clear Sky when we were there is every once in a while at a staff meeting, we would have people pair up and talk to each other about what they wanted to be acknowledged for. Because it's hard in the day-to-day life of a school to see and acknowledge everything. But I could sit across from Director Holtzman and say, you know what, I just really want to be acknowledged for the fact that I got up in front of the board and spoke today, right? So seeing people, acknowledging them, Ubuntu, that's what makes us feel valued, and that's what creates that positive culture. Because you see me, I am. So thank you for making one of our initiatives about seeing and valuing each and every staff member in our district. Appreciate that work.
Thank you, Ms. Herman.
Jumping the gun. All right. Good to see you all tonight, and I see you. and I'm actually gonna go off script a little bit because, well, I do that. So I used to be a photojournalist in this county, and it was, I don't know how many years ago.
Don't count.
But I'm going to. So Kim and I have known one another for quite a while. Back when I was a photojournalist, I got an assignment sheet to go and make a photo of one of our Apple Awards. I think it was recipient at the time, and she was teaching, I think, at Northeast Intermediate, right? And so I went out and, you know, I walked into the school and was kind of looking for a way to make a picture. And the thing that really struck me about Kim, and still strikes me about Kim, is just her, the way that positivity sort of emanates from her. And so I definitely do see you. And so it is my pleasure to talk about our third objective in positive and supportive culture, which is to enhance opportunities for all employees to be DCSD ambassadors who are informed and empowered in their professional practice. So that objective really ties in nicely, and that's, I sort of land with the practice piece of that Venn diagram. And so it really marries up nicely to the people and to the environment. So if we've got solid people, which we do, and we work on our environments, this becomes our opportunity to lean forward with trust and with honesty and make sure that everybody's on board and everybody knows kind of where we're headed. And so events down at the Pepsi Center and other events give us an opportunity for that unity of purpose. So the strategic initiative that's tied to this objective is to create systems that increase transparency and encourage effective and accurate communication to all staff throughout the district. And so I'm going to read this because I kind of like it. When we grow to a place of trust and honesty, every DCSD employee will have the capacity and will be empowered to deliver the highest quality version of their professional self with the aim of fostering educational and operational excellence. Our students are the key benefactors of our focus on positive and supportive culture. And with that, it is my pleasure to bring forward and introduce some very special student leaders. And of course, they have hard names. So students, will you join me, please? All right. So we have Natalie Staniszewski, a sixth grader, Cole Cherney, also a sixth grader, and they are Link crew leaders at Fox Creek Elementary with Mr. Rada. We also have Irie Fredrickson, a fifth grader, and Wyatt Dodd, a sixth grader, who are both peer mentors at Fox Creek Elementary. And so I will certainly yield to you, and you all can do your thing.
Hi, thank you for having us. My name is Cole, and I'm a member of Link Crew at Fox Creek Elementary. Link Crew is a leadership team that meets on Friday mornings with Mr. Bryan from 8 to 9 a.m. to learn leadership skills. I'm one of 12 members, and last spring we each applied, developed personal statements, and interviewed for a position on this team. Our main responsibility at Fox Creek is to work towards a more positive and inclusive culture. Link Crew runs community meetings, student-led tours, and develops our Better World Day project, where we write kind letters and messages, and then we go and deliver them in the neighborhood by Fox Creek to help make our world a better place. As a Link Crew member, this work means a lot to me. When I lead a community meeting, I feel like people respect and look up to me. I feel that I'm making a difference at my school.
Hello, my name is Natalie, and I'm the second representative from Link Crew. Link Crew strengthens our school each and every day. One way that we impact the school is through what we call community meetings. For a community meeting, we gather the school together and sit in a big circle to discuss an important theme or issue. A few weeks ago, we took a survey about if we feel like we belong at FCE. Link Crew used the data from this survey to plan our past community meeting around what our school needed most. Community meetings tell both students and staff the direction that Link Crew wants Fox Creek to work towards. Our teachers are a big part of this success because they provide us with time, resources, and practice to do this kind of work. Another thing that Link Crew will be doing in a few weeks that inspires me is student-led tours. Link Crew will be leading these tours throughout the school, showing our best and unique areas of learning. We are proud of the people we have become at FCE, and we will always be growing as students and leaders. We have to tell each other that students who come to our school, no matter the age, will always be in good hands and hard at work on academics and character. Link Crew is constantly making Fox Creek a better, safer environment, and will make sure that everyone knows that they belong.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Irie, and I am a 5th grade peer mentor from Fox Creek Elementary. The peer mentor team is a group of 5th and 6th graders that get together every Friday to cooperate and help kids with behavior challenges, friendship troubles, or just anyone who needs help. Last year, at the end of the school year, everybody who was interested went through an application and interview process. Only 24 were chosen. At the beginning of this school year, we went through 7 weeks of training with Miss Heather, Miss Faith, and Miss Stephanie. Then we got assigned a certain class. Now, every Friday morning, every peer mentor goes to their mentee class to help their teacher and the kids in that class. This work makes me feel like I can make the world a better place, and it just makes me feel good inside. In conclusion, peer mentors show kindness and compassion by collaborating to help younger students.
Thanks.
Hello, I'm Wyatt Dodd, and I'm the second representative from Peer Mentors. After hearing my friend Ivory speak, I now want to give an idea of Peer Mentors' effect and how it changes us and the people around us. The effect that Peer Mentors has had on me is now it makes me more happy to just make someone smile. The effect for the people around us is that they feel more comfortable knowing that a peer mentor is with them. People feel more welcome when someone wearing a peer mentor shirt is nearby and at least showing a smile to someone. The effect that peer mentors has on the school is that staff, teachers, and administrators know that a peer mentor is someone who can be counted on to give help with integrity. Our staff volunteers their time to help with our training and supports us with time away from class to do peer mentor work. Being a member of Peer Mentors has helped me be more of a leader as we work to improve our school culture.
Good, thank you, Wyatt.
Thank you, guys.
Let's give them a round of applause, yeah. Woo.
And I'm barely taller than a 6th grader. Good evening, directors. It's good to see you again. So I'm here to give a quick overview of what the action plan team is doing for Strategic Initiative 1A, based around core values, commitments, and behaviors going forward. As you know from our work together, it's important foundational work for any team or organization to really move forward. So what you're looking at is the first phase draft of a 3-phase framework. that goes from initial conversations to agreements, all the way through to implementation and training that starts with you guys and moves its way out and down. Now, what we have done with this so far, as of last Thursday, we met with district leadership, all principals and directors, and we asked what their feedback was on this. What do you think about the timeline? What do you think about the process? Without their input, it's hard to move forward. So we have that, and now we're able to start looking at next steps moving forward. Real quickly, I just want to give a shout out to Kim Herman and Brian Rada. They are a part of this action plan team, in addition to being here tonight to help give this information to you guys. So thank you to you guys.
All right, well, that concludes our presentation, but we'd love to offer any opportunities if you have questions of any of our speakers.
Well, Mr. Wells, first of all, I'll just say, once again, you're very close to having the perfect presentation. You have teacher, you have,
Very close?
very close. And the only thing that I noticed, the only points I've taken off is you turned a 20-minute presentation into a 60-minute presentation, but climate and culture is one of the most important things. And so I think certainly I know the board directors may have some other quick comments or questions, but truly, this is what has always made Douglas County, Douglas County. It's we paid attention to how we value people, and like Wyatt said, just making somebody smile. You know, I mean, that's what it's all about. So to the entire team, and especially to our kids, it's just so wonderful to have kids in our boardroom. So give them another round of applause as well. So directors, questions, comments? Director Chancha Shore.
Comment. I'm not going to get into the how, promise. I'm just going to make a comment. District administrators, thank you for setting this up. School administrators, that's the hardest job I've ever had in my life. And for you to have to be here in the evening and then present to us, thank you. It's valuable to hear school administration input. Teachers, for God's sakes, you guys work 12 to 15 hours a day just doing your work for your kids. You get paid for 5 or 4 or 3 hours a day. So thank you for being here. And students, wow, thank you, Mr. Rada's kids. You guys are amazing, and I could tell that you have an amazing school. So it's really pleasant to have such an incredible presentation, and you did hit all the key elements. It's cracking me up that every time you just kind of prime our pump a little bit by adding some element that helps us see really what you're thinking and what you're doing. The only question I have, or actually a comment, and I hope it's not a how, to assure that in the rest of the process that there are many teachers represented in the conversation and that teachers have a valuable, important input, and we have a number. I don't know what that number is. It's great to see that teachers were here tonight. I just want to assure that we have a number of teachers, because the climate and culture of a building really is identified by the principal, but the kids are impacted every single day by the teachers that are in front of them, and that determines student success. I just want to comment that I hope teachers are more involved, continue to be involved.
Thank you, Director Chancha Shore. Director Lemieux.
So how awesome is it that I get to end on this? Because this is exactly the foundation of what makes Douglas County great. So what a gift to me to get to hear this part of the strategic plan. As we know, this is just that beginning part of it. We're not talking about the how tonight, but here's what the plan is that's going to be implemented next year. And so to hear that, and just as a reminder to Director Shore, enhance engagement for all, and they stressed all DCSD employees, and I agree. I 100% agree that getting that feedback, and when I went out for my last visits to schools, I stressed, please be part of the process. And I really want to help encourage our incredible principals, and I can't really look at Brian because our kids went to Fox Creek. We are so blessed in this community, and we have these 4 amazing voices because we have such dedicated administrators and educators and staff members and PLC and counselors. People care desperately about the entire culture of this district. And so thank you. And again, it's just a blessing that I get to end on this. So I'm going to leave right now.
No, sorry. You still.
Can I leave right now?
That
I
doesn't
want
work
to talk
that
about
way.
policies.
Sorry,
Okay.
Dr.
Anyway, truly, thank you.
Yeah.
Directors, other comments? Director Holtzman.
And if you don't mind, let me just,
sure.
just say really quickly, we are so excited to come to you very, very soon to share the action plan. So just know that there will be continuous feedback, and we really can't say that enough. And we do need your help and to continue to encourage all of our teachers, all of our staff, our certified staff, our classified staff, to stay involved. One of the things that this weekend was a big weekend because I'm from the Bayou, so it wasn't about the snow, because that was a blizzard, by the way. But it was about, LSU beating Alabama. But that wasn't the best part of my weekend, even though that was a great part. The best part that I remember this weekend was when Minnesota, don't tell my youngest that's a Penn Stater, goes to Penn State, when they beat Penn State, because after it was over, the Minnesota coach talked about the difference between a team and a group. This is a team. We are a team. And so I think you'll see that in the action plans when you see that. It is a team effort. That's why they were able to win. Shh, don't say that to Penn Staters, but that's why they were able to win, and that's why we've done what we've been able to do, and we'll be able to continue to win for our kids. So I just wanted to just leave you with that. We're a team. We're not a group.
Thank you for that. Director Holtzman, final comment.
I'll try to be brief. I really just wanted to thank all of you for being here, being a part of this team, for giving your time. I wanted to thank you for sharing your personal experiences and your values, because it's just so obvious when you speak to us, and actually having had the opportunity to work with some of you, it's just so obvious that you have the wisdom and the care to create these safe, positive environments where our students can learn, and where even board directors can learn, because like I said, we've had some experience with professional development with some of you. So thank you for that. And thank you also for mentioning that you did review so much data. I won't read back through all of the surveys and all of the input that you've gotten, but that's also important for us to hear. And I just appreciate that you're also doing that. And I know that that'll give you a place to be able to measure the progress that we're going to make as our team of all of our schools, because it's just so exciting. I'm very confident that that's going to happen. So thanks.
And Director Graziano, the final comment.
No, I just had I wanted to invite myself to Mr. Rada's school. I've never visited Fox Creek, and I would love to spend some time with that school and some of those kids. Wow, that was just off the charts. I mean, so impressive, so impressive.
All right, with that, Marlena Gross, Taylor, thank you. Thank you, entire team. We're going to take a break from the board and enjoy the rest of your evening. And next on our agenda is parent engagement follow-up process for internal public complaints. And I believe Ted Knight is leading this presentation. Hopefully you brought teachers, kids, and building principals. Okay, all right.
Good evening, board directors. Thank you for the opportunity to talk tonight. I did indeed bring our fabulous director of schools for the Parker region, Dr. Carrie Stevenson, and we have a couple of our fabulous principals with us tonight. Since this is more of a parent complaint issue, we did not bring students, although we would have had feedback from the SAG for you tonight, but the weather did not cooperate with us, as you know, Director Ray. We had to cancel that meeting, but we are going before SAG at the next meeting, as well as DAC, to get some other feedback. But our main goal tonight is kind of update you on where we are with the process, and then we did take basically the same framework we brought to you last month or 6 weeks ago to our principals. And so Sid and Michelle are going to talk a little bit tonight about the feedback that we received from their colleagues, and then we'll end with some times for question and answer. So just kind of an update of some of the things we're doing. Legal is continually working with us as we refine this process to make sure our general complaint process is in alignment with many of the other policies that come before this board, to make sure that we do not have one policy conflicting with another policy. So we continue to look at that. Again, most of these formal policies, discrimination, EEOC, harassment, we have federal law, we have state law, we have board policy. Those are not to be confused with the complaint process we're talking about tonight. This is more around KE, general complaints that a parent or a community member might have, most often about something going on in one of our schools. I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Stevenson, who's going to walk you through. You should have each got a copy of the forms that we would have parents fill out, the forms that administrators would fill out. And I'm going to have Dr. Stevenson kind of walk you through where we're at right now.
Very good. Good evening.
Good evening, directors. So you've seen most of this before, and you have in front of you a more detailed description of this process. I just want to highlight a few things. First and foremost, it really is our intent to have a process that is highly communicated to our families and our students. Just as Zoe was mentioning earlier in her public comment, it is our desire to have a process that everyone knows the steps that they need to go to in order to be heard with whatever their complaint may be. So at the first step is our informal conference at the school level. And I want to emphasize here that it depends on where that starts as to what the complaint might be. So if it's a teacher level complaint, we would hope that it would start with the teacher. If it is an athletic complaint, we would hope that it starts with the coach. And then it would work up the chain of command within that school as appropriate. Whether it goes to an assistant principal and then the principal, that is all handled on an informal basis, with really the intent there being a way of building relationships and having some comfortable conversations without a lot of barriers for our parents. So we felt that that was really important to have that be at an informal level. And then to work up at a more formal level, level one from the executive director of schools or the athletic director. Level two complaint goes to the assistant superintendent, then the superintendent, and then finally with the Board of Education. So where the final decision would rest with you. So as you have in front of you, it's a lot more detailed of the packet, but this is where we are right now. And where we have gone, as Ted said, was take this to the DLT. So all of the directors and the principals have had the opportunity to look through this packet and work through it in a variety of ways. We provided them with some scenarios, kind of if this happens, where would you suggest that a parent enter this process? So they really had a good opportunity to really work through the process, and then we gathered some feedback from them. So I would like to bring up two of our fabulous principals principals, Michelle Frenchie from Stone Mountain Elementary and Sid Rendell from Crest Hill Middle School, and they're going to talk to you more about what that principal feedback included.
Great. Welcome. Good evening.
Great, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Before I begin, I just want to also give a personal thank you to Director Lemieux. I've given my heart, my soul, my career to the Highlands Ranch community and at Crest Hill, and Lemieux has been our, Director Lemieux has been our representative. And her husband obviously is pretty cool. Her kids are even cooler. And with heartfelt appreciation, you've been a wonderful advocate for all of us. So. You know, I guess my initial comments are that this is perfect that this presentation, this conversation is coming on the heels of the former conversation, because I would pivot and say that this is where the rubber hits the road on systemic culture, right? Climate and culture is all about the quality of processes in place, particularly processes where people are disgruntled or frustrated or angry, and how those things get managed and how we work through that has so much to say about the strength of our organization and how we move forward. So this was obviously, I guess my first point is, this was obviously extraordinarily well received by principals, that we're having the conversation, that we're seeking clarity. As principals will tell you, as any of the faculty or the staff members will tell you, is piercing clarity in terms of policy and procedure is always the antidote to systemic dysfunction or morale creep. And so having that clarity is something we welcome, something we're very, very excited about. There's two things that keep principals up all night long. One of them is the prospect of someone going to Dr. Tucker over our heads and complaining before they've ever gone through us. And the second thing is soft release days. But we're only going to talk about the first one right now.
Who came up with that?
So what keeps us up late at night, obviously, is this very important conversation about what is the chain of command? How does the chain of command work? What is my role? Gosh, I didn't have an opportunity to try to mediate this conflict, or to try to resolve this frustration before it went over my head, and now I'm not sure I'm going to get that opportunity. Those are the types of things, obviously, that become very, very, very frustrating. It's very much about, the principals group was extraordinarily interested in communicating that relationships are what are so foundational in the work of a principal, and the ability to enter and retain those relationships. And we know, anybody who's ever been in a relationship with another human being knows that it's sometimes working through the conflict that actually strengthens those relationships. I know that it strengthens my policies and my practice as a principal, and when I have the opportunity to engage with our community, it not only strengthens that relationship and hopefully makes it more productive, it makes me a better principal as well. And so that, I think, is what I heard from our principal group overall, is the more that as the policy states, the more that the issues get pushed down to the lowest level of where the conflict occurred, the more healthy the organization it becomes, and the more healthy the organization is. So the answer to that question is systematic process is needed and valued. 100% buy-in with that. The devil's always in the details, and we have to work through that and make it work for everybody, but there's no complaint that we're talking about the right stuff.
I just want to piggyback on a couple things that Sid shared, not about the soft release,
Okay.
but because it was amazing at the elementary level. So just some of the feedback that principals that I heard from principals, you're spot on, the relationship component. As my colleague Sid and all of our principals, we pride ourselves on having an open door policy. And when a parent walks in and has a concern, if I at all can, stop and address that immediately. if we have to put some type of process in place for that quick little informal piece, I think that is going to be a hindrance for principals, just because that, that doesn't lead to that culture building relationship component that we work so hard to have at our school level. And you're right, we want all of our problems, all of our concerns to be dealt with at the lowest level. And so when a parent comes to me and asks the question of, you know, I have this problem, my first response is, have you talked to the teacher? Because that is where, as Sid said, the rubber meets the road, and that's where we can make a lot of those decisions and to help mend some of those relationships. Let's see, the next component too is making sure that if we do have a protocol in place, I think principals are just wanting to provide feedback around everybody needs to follow the process. And if that goes from the building administrator to, you know, our EDOS, to Ted, to Dr. Tucker, to the board, we have to follow the process. Because if we don't follow the process, there's no value in the process. And so making sure that when we create the process, we need to honor that process. And I think those were the two big, I think, overarching themes that we heard from principals.
Very good. Thank you both.
So again, just to reiterate, we are taking our show on the road to the student advisory group to just get a student perspective. Most of the time, these situations are going to arise from a student issue that's happening in schools. So we want to get SAG's input on, does this make sense for you? A couple of the things that you'll see in your document that we stress there based on past feedback is this thread of student advocacy. Although we have this process, how do we help our parents understand, first and foremost, we would like, where appropriate, to have students advocate for themselves, and we want SAG's feedback on that. And then also, how does this work? Are you guys, when you go home and maybe you know you're upset about something that happened at school, you share that with your parent? Our process is going to be, we're going to push you to go talk to that teacher directly. What do you guys feel about that? So we're going to ask them some of those questions, and then to go to DAC to get more of that community perspective of, if this is the way the process goes, what feedback do you have for us? So those are two areas, and again, legal will continue to look at this every step of the way, again, to make sure we are consistent with our other policies. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions that you have for anyone on the group.
Great. Well, first of all, thank you, all four of you, for giving a great overview. And I just want to also just say, you know, I know we had a glimpse of this, Ted, I think you presented to us a few months ago, and oh my gosh, it's evolved tremendously. So thank you for taking our feedback. I know when we talked before, we were concerned about the board not being a level in that initial draft, but I would just say that this is exciting stuff, because I think this is what we certainly as a board have the most challenge to navigate when a stakeholder comes and talks to us. And so to be able to now help them navigate where to go and to have some really clean forms that document that they've done the path correctly is huge. So a lot of great work. I just want to applaud, first of all of you for that. So yeah.
Just done a great job.
That's great, thank you. So with that, questions, Director Lung.
Well, as your board liaisons for parent engagement, this is the topics that I have been talking to a lot of people about. And I think a lot of parents in the past do not feel empowered or do not know the process. They feel stuck after they talk to the principal, and they don't get resolved, and they don't know where to go, both in the neighborhood school and in the charter school. So my question number one is, does this policy equally apply to the neighborhood school and the charter school, knowing that there's a few of the charter school waive out from the KE process? So when a charter parent come over and talk to me, hey, Kevin, you know, if I get stuck, where do I turn to? Can I talk to you? Do I show them this new process and said that this also apply to you, or there's another process for charter?
So Director Lung, just if I may clarify, are you asking specifically about what happens if a charter parent has a complaint? Is that your question?
Correct. does this new process only apply to the non-charter parents, or it also apply for a charter school that is waived out of the KE process?
So we've created this specifically for our neighborhood schools, and that's who we've gotten feedback from. You are correct that unless a charter school waives out of policy KE, which several have, that they would have to have some type of process similar to ours. The processes that we would approve from charters would have that same kind of, I don't know, appeal process. The big difference between charters and our neighborhood schools is that local charter board is the final answer versus our local board here. But most of our charters, if not all, have a talk to the principal, talk to the director or the executive director, and then finally go to their specific charter board.
So I think it's important for us to note in this policy, because after all, 60,000 students are all our students, no matter what type of school do they go to. And every parent should be empowered to be able to bring up their issues to us. We are the elected representative, no matter what type of school do they go to, right? And so I think in the policy is probably we should let them know that what is your process that you can go through based on what type of school that you are. So because when somebody comes over and talk to me, I myself need to know how to direct them, who to talk to, based on whether their school is waived out from KE or not waived out from KE, whether they are labeled school or charter school. I just want to make sure that I myself understand what is my role is when one of my constituents come over and talk to me.
Yeah, and I see Dr. Tucker getting ready to intervene, but I will just clarify too, Director Lung, that this is an internal complaint process. So this is what happens internally in the system. You're correct. We still are the elected officials that provide oversight to all our schools. And certainly there is that right for any constituent to come and talk to elected officials, but I think this is specifically about what happens in the building and how they appeal. So I'll just clarify from my perspective, at least I think that's the intent of this, not to be internal and external, it's just the internal policy. But Dr. Tucker, I'll...
To give a very brief answer to Director Lung's question, 8 of our charter schools have waived out of board policy KE, which is the public complaint policy. The others have not. However, the complaint process for all of our charter schools are identified in each of their charter contracts, and it states that every school shall establish a process for resolving public complaints. Also, on our end, the district, once the district has been notified of a complaint, we have 10 days of receipt of that complaint to get back with the charter schools.
And I just want to, again, come back to that, because I think Director Lung makes a really good point that we still need to continue to get clear about, and that is when does a charter parent or community member come to the board? And I think what Director Lung's getting at is some work we need to do with our policy KE. Quite honestly, Director Lung, I think that's where the revisions need to come, because I think we need to probably identify in that policy that when a parent has exhausted all their efforts with the governing board of that charter, do they have the privilege to come and talk to their elected officials? So I think there's some work to be done with that policy also.
Exactly, Dr. Ray. I mean, that is what I'm trying to get at is, after all, they're all of our constituents, no matter what type of school they are. And the current policy do not say that this is only for neighborhood school. So when some parent come over and talk to me, there's some charter parent do email me about issues. I need to clearly explain to them and say that go to refer to this policy, and this is the process you need to go through. And so I think it gives the parents a very clear understanding right now based on what school they are at, what type of school they are at, and whether their school is expensive for charter, whether they waive out the KE or not. They know what a path for them. And we probably in the last 2 years when I was in the board, we have a lot of charter parents also come over to address us with their concern. And so I just want to make sure that we provide a clear layout for all our parents based on the title of the school that they have, so they know how to go by to address their concern, because all of them are our constituents.
So and then Dr. Tucker, but just one clarification, right? Again, Dr. Lung, this is not, we're not discussing policy KE. So this is an internal complaint process. So we're not talking about a policy issue right now. We're talking about a procedure that our staff's putting in place for the appropriate way to appeal a concern. So I want us to keep KE because that's to come. We still have some work to do to look at that policy and revise it accordingly, but just make sure we're not debating policy KE. We're listening to the process that staff is putting in place internally. Dr. Tucker?
Real quick, here are the steps or processes. A parent would notify the charter teacher and school personnel, notify the charter school principal, very much like the policy we're not going to mention, notify the charter executive director or head of school, file a grievance with the charter school board or make a formal complaint at public comment at a charter school board meeting. If the charter school board is not responding to the grievance concern, the district choice office, Danny Windsor, can file a complaint with the corresponding school board to ensure that they receive an appropriate response. And at all times, the district can be utilized as support to the parent or school official to work through the complaint.
Director Lemieux?
I just want a little clarification then, because I think it's very important that we as a board understand our role and our duty is not to resolve issues for charter schools. That would come through Danny's office to you as our. So, and then if it came to us at that point, that's because it is now a contractual problem, not a student or teacher problem. And so I think we've got to be really careful as elected officials not to overstep our authority into trying to resolve issues at charter schools. That's not what we were elected to do. I know we were elected, but we were not elected to do that. So I want to be really careful in that when I'm looking at this, there's a really clear line of communication, of a process, which I think Mr. Rundle alluded to, the importance and the value of actually following the process. And we all need to follow it, which Mrs. Frenchie mentioned that if we're not all following it, then the process doesn't work. And so I think that we as a board need to commit to following the process as well. So I appreciate that clarification, and if we need to have that discussion again, great. I won't be here, but you guys go ahead and have that discussion.
You can join us.
All right.
Can I have a second question?
Sure.
Again, my first question is emphasizing we need a clear policy so our parent knows, okay? Because, and again, so in the past 2 years, we see a lot of different type of school, parents come over and address us and think that we will be able to do something for them. But as all the director and doctor point out that there's only limited authority of this board can do certain thing. So that's the reason why I asked the first questions. So my second question is in the slide number 4.
That one?
Well, the one down there, yeah. Well, the second two, yes. So this is a parent engagement, internal policy. And when we go out to ask for feedback, I'm sure that you will also ask our parents. But in here, when people just spot it and say that the upcoming feedback sessions only go to legal, SAG, DAC. But after all, this is a parent process. So a lot of those parents belongs to the SAC. And are we going to reach out to the SAC to try to gather their input? And also, a lot of those, sometimes, complaint issues are related to the staff or teacher and things like that. Are we going to talk to maybe the employee council to gather their input, or maybe some of the professional organizations that representing a teacher to gather their input, or some of the staff, however we get us their input, because it's very important that their opinion is being consulted before we finalize a policy. So in short, parent and our staff, how, and I do not see that in here.
Yeah, very, very good questions, Director Long. And probably a good segue. At DAC, my hope is that we can get I'll say this right, the SAC representatives that come to DAC meetings to take this back to their SACs and get us some feedback. Our best way as staff to get to SACs is through the DAC, because hopefully most SACs still have a representative that are coming to the DAC meeting. So when we meet with the DAC in a couple weeks? Next week, our hope is that they can take that out and bring that feedback back to us, versus us trying to go directly out to SACs. When it comes to teachers, we haven't talked about that. We've kind of let the principals speak for their staffs. If there's a desire for us to go directly to teachers, I think we can huddle up and figure out the best way to do that. I am taking the principals at their word when they say the teachers want it brought back down to the lowest level, that's exactly what they're going to tell us. If we need to ask them that, we sure can.
Director Chanchashore and then Director Holtzman.
Just in answer to the SAC question, the DAC operates a little bit differently now with table topics, and the table topic that's happening Tuesday is this. There'll be more conversation regarding this complaint process. So table topics means that the SACs that come, and last time, I don't know, there were probably 50 people there. So it's gotten bigger and bigger, and the SAC people come and represent, and then they take it to their SACs for feedback. They bring it back in a feedback loop. We also have lots of opportunities for communication technologically in the DAC now through the SACs. So this is part of the process through the DAC. It'll go to the SACs. That was clarified last night in the planning meeting that will happen next week.
Sure, please.
My question is specific to the first level of complaints. So I think this says, and I'm just asking clarification, when you're sitting in a principal chair, you might have 15 people a day come into your office to talk about something. And this doesn't necessarily say that you write a formal letter here, you follow this formal process for everybody who comes into your office. If you've problem solved it, then it doesn't have to go to this process. If the parent doesn't feel like it has been taken care of, then you can take the next step into this process. Am I correct in assuming that?
That's exactly right, and I can let Sid and Michelle speak to that a little bit. That whole informal conference at the school level is all of that stuff that we've dealt with 50 times a day. And if that relationship is built and that parent leaves satisfied, I'll let Sid talk directly. The principals did not feel it was a great use of their time to document that if it was solved. But I'll let Sid
in many cases, they're writing things down, but it doesn't, in maybe a book, but it doesn't necessarily have to follow this every single time a parent comes in.
Director Chanchashore, I completely agree with you, and I think the question is excellent. I bristle only at an academic level with the word informal, because the amount of complaints and frustration and agony that I deal with on a daily basis never feels very informal to me. It feels pretty relevant and pretty important. But from a process point of view, we really are talking about what are those issues that I couldn't resolve through my relationship, through our discussion, through our dogged efforts to try to come to an agreement. And respectfully, the person says, you know, Principal Rundle, I'm just not happy. So I want to talk, I want to go over your head. I want to talk to your director. That's where none of our colleagues have any concern of saying, now we can begin a more formal documentation process, mostly for just the pragmatic reason of letting my EDOS know what's transpired so that they're not having to start all over again, digging and digging. But that's really, you're right, where the formal process begins and where it would become more documented. Yeah.
And it's true. I mean, we do document and informally in our little book, like you said, you know, every conversation that we have with parents. And I think the part where we don't want that to turn formal, that first levels, because we don't want to have you walk into my office, well, here's a piece of paper, I need you to fill this out before you talk to me. Because that is not building relationships.
Right, and that would feel like, I mean, I think a lot of conversations are those conversations that just are building in conversation and talking, and if you're gonna put a piece of paper, that just makes it different and starts a completely
And
different
it's going
process.
to make you angrier before
Right,
we ever have a
absolutely.
chance to try to talk.
To try to rectify
Well, and
the
there's so
situation.
many. I just kind of want to infer, I want to make sure that we're talking about the same thing. We're not expecting principals to write every time someone walks in their office.
Thank you.
I would cry
Daily.
daily.
Very good. All right, Director Holtzman.
Yeah, so thank you guys, and I really want to appreciate that you have included guidance for encouraging students to know what the process is and to utilize self-advocacy and to build on those skills. Obviously, always including parents as appropriate, but I really appreciate that guidance for students too. And so I think maybe my question was just answered, but I want to make sure I know. So that informal process, I get that. I don't think we should have barriers for parents, undue burden for principals. So the first documentation would be the principal sending it to the DOS. So I guess here's my question. It says informal process at the school level, but it doesn't specify that the student or parent would need to talk to the principal first. And so I guess in my mind, and maybe you and the principals can answer, I would think the principals would want that to happen before it goes to the DOS level, and do we have that built in somewhere?
So it is encouraged at the informal level that they talk to the principal first before it goes to the EDOS. And that's the formal step where if the parent feels like the conflict or the concern is not resolved at the building level, they can initiate that formal process. That's where the first form comes in. And then there is an additional guidance form for the EDOS to use with principals to gather that information from the building perspective as well, so that as we work through the situation, we can hear both the principal or teacher's perspective as well as the parent's perspective.
Director Holtzman.
Follow up, and then one more question. So we wouldn't get into a situation where somebody would go, like say only to a teacher and then skip the principal and go to the DOS. That wouldn't happen because you would send.
Correct.
And we've got that built in.
That's correct.
Okay, and then the only other comment I had really is probably a board issue, and we may just need to look at that as far as our timeline, specific timeline, and the making sure that we can stick to that. I just want to make sure that if the board is supposed to do something within, say, 10 days, that that's actually practical, considering we meet usually twice a month. And just make sure that we look at that process so we can make sure we get that done, so.
And that's one of the issues Mary's looking at, is what does that look like if it's one of those months where we don't have a board meeting? And then is the board will respond in 10 days, does that have to be board action? Could it just be the board president or the board secretary simply says, we've received your complaint, we'll talk about this at the next board meeting? We are still, and I think we'll collaboratively have to talk through, what does level 4 look like? Is that a public discussion? Is it executive session? Is it a small group of you look at these? One person looks at them? I think we'll have to figure out that part of it.
And we'll be glad to take that piece off of your plate. Mr. Knight, we'll, as a board, we'll define that level 4, what that looks like. And I think that also leads into some of the discussion that Director Lung wants to have around policy KE updates as well. So I think we can own that piece, but we appreciate the framework you've got. Director Lemieux?
Mine's really just a timeline, because obviously it was brought up during public comment. The public hasn't seen the forms. We do get information that's not public yet because it's a working document. And so there is this swirling around out there. Are you hoping to have this implemented by January, by the 2021 school year? What is the timeline you're looking at as far as implementation?
Sure, yeah, as soon as possible, I would hope in the next couple of months that we would get this out. One of the final steps is gonna have to be, and it goes a little bit to Director Lung's question, is how do we inform our community of this process? How do we make sure that parents know, is it a button on the website or what is it? So I think that'll be one of the last steps, and I think maybe the start of this second semester might be a good launching point for that. We've really taken the idea of we need to do this right and not fast. We can get it done without input and implement it quickly, and those things don't often work right. So we've taken a little more time than we normally would to make sure we've asked every stakeholder along the way, is this getting at what you want? Because I think if we build this process right, it'll last.
Director Lemieux?
Have you considered pilot schools, like a pilot elementary, a pilot middle school, and a pilot, maybe all in one feeder, just so they can, feel a few bumps that come up and then do it for the whole district in the 2021 school year? Have you guys looked at anything
We
like
haven't, but that's a great idea. Director Stevenson might be the perfect region to pilot that. So. with all of her knowledge about this process. Not a bad idea.
Very good. Well, again, thank you. One suggestion I would have, because I'm still have Director Lung in my ear right now about how do we make sure, probably the best test of this kind of process is when we talk to the parents who are discontent with the process, right? It's those parents, and we can probably give you a few names of parents that could be a focus group that could say, if this process were in place, parent that had difficulty before, we want you to poke holes, or we want you to tell us, what's good. We want, I just wonder if we want to do more of a focus group with those parents. I remember, I don't know if it's been 2 years already, but we had a work session with a parent group that this really came up as one of their top issues around how do they channel their appeal through the system. And so I'm just throwing that out if that might be helpful to do a test. I know we said. And Ted has been assigned to meet with that group of people.
Usually the way it goes.
But I mean, seriously, I would be more than glad to help you with that, because we know, like I said, we know of some parents right now that I think would really be good resources to test this, to really point out to us if there's some things that didn't work for them. I think what you've got going, though, is definitely in the right direction. I just think it feels good. It's systemic. It's consistent. So it really feels like it's really going the way it should go. So hats off to all of you. All right. Thank you. All right. Well, we're finally to the superintendent's report.
Wow. Thank
Dr.
you.
Tucker.
Yeah. Thanks, Director Ray, and all our directors and our folks who are still here. I promise you I'm going to get us back on time. I'll be very brief. First and foremost, today I spoke with Sarah Olasky. She is one of the directors with the College Board. As you know, on October 30th, we did have a real snow day, Ms. Kylo, and I can guarantee, she's gone, but I can guarantee you, I can give you 100 parents who will attest that we had a snow day on the 30th, which disrupted testing, PSAT, NMSQT testing. Matt, did I miss any alphabets? Okay, thank you. On the 30th, not only did it disrupt testing in the Douglas County School District, it disrupted testing in Cherry Creek, DPS, and Aurora. So it's not just, did not just impact our area. So we will get an official letter from the College Board that will give us some guidance in terms of what they're going to do. One thing I did find out is that our students will receive a full refund. The second part I did here, I should say, and Mr. Reynolds alluded to this when he gave an update at our last board meeting, they will answer some questions. There will be a Q&A in terms of how we could substitute, our students could substitute their SAT scores for the PSAT. The tests are calibrated the same, where a score on an SAT is equal to a certain score on the PSAT. And so, Matt, once again, you were right about that. But we won't get the official notice until tomorrow. And as soon as we get it, Matt Reynolds and our communications department is going to push that message out right away.
Very good.
So certainly want to thank our students and parents for being patient with us. The second thing, I know Mr. Nelson spoke earlier about the mass tort litigation against the big e-cigarette manufacturer, Juul. Certainly want to appreciate his comments that he's made, as well as Mr. Jones. But what we're doing right now, we're reaching out to learn more about the effects of what the efforts by the Colorado Attorney General's office. So we're working with them, and we're also regarding vaping, the impact of vaping in Colorado. And Mary has been in contact with a couple of the initial districts who have signed on to the complaints, particularly those districts from my old stomping ground in Kansas. And so, however, I believe, I don't know, and I'm sure Mary would probably poke me with a sharp stick if I say too much here, but my guess is that the Attorney General's office is going to take the lead on this case here, because it impacts more than just students in Colorado and in Kansas and in Arizona. So that's where we are with that. We do appreciate the public giving us information, and we're going to do what we can do to, as we always try to attempt to do, to help our kids out and our parents. So thanks for that. And also, during our early recognition, I failed to recognize Terrell Horton, former Navy, was it officer, enlisted guy? Okay. Yes. So thank you for your service. We greatly appreciate that. He also represents Congressman Crow's office. He and some of his colleagues have worked closely with Congressman Buck, obviously again with Congressman Crow, in looking at our board policy. So thank you for looking at that at a federal level. And I'll say this, and I will stop, and it's important that I, as superintendent, ensure we get accurate information out there. The federal government does have a say in medicinal marijuana. We look at our state law says that if the federal government says that there is an issue with school districts administering medicinal marijuana, whether it's CBD or THC, the policy statewide becomes null and void. So again, I want to thank you from Congressman Crow's office for being here today and taking a federal look at it. And last thing, Marlena, did LSU defeat Bama? All right, thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Tucker. Yes, Director Lung has a question. Dr. Tucker.
Dr. I would like to ask you questions about administrative. So when somebody file some sort of a complaint with the court or things like that, is it reasonable to assuming that you will get the information right away to your office, or is it assuming that it is reasonable to take 4 or 5 business days to arrive to the school district?
Without speaking to any specific situation, it's very reasonable to assume that it takes delivery time in the United States mail. It takes time for us to get the mail processed, and we do have timestamps on when we receive all types of correspondence through the United States mail. And I certainly want to thank all of our great administrative assistants who handle our mail for time stamping when we do receive mail. And I will also say this, there's no intent on anybody's part to not divulge mail.
Very good, thank you, Dr. Tucker. All right, so we're going to move on to our policy revisions. We have several policies that we have done a first reading of, and again, this is the result of lots of investment of time for us in terms of looking at every policy in our policy manual to update it, remove obsolete policies, make sure they're aligned to statute and current district practices. We're going to take one policy at a time, Mrs. Clemish. So the first one, let's just look at only policy GBA, which is titled Open Hiring Equal Employment Opportunity. Anything in that policy that you would like to highlight since our first reading?
Well, I just want to, first of all, make a little bit of clarification. I may have misled Dr. Tucker to understanding. I've pulled complaints with respect to the Jewel litigation that is pending against school districts across the country, and we've been reviewing those complaints. We have not directly spoken with the school districts, but we have pulled the complaints, meaning the litigation they have filed against Jewel. So I just wanted to clarify that so I could sleep tonight.
All right, thank you.
Anyway, moving on to GBA, all I would like to add regarding this is that with respect to this, the list of protected classes, there have been some discussion and questions with respect to where these lists come from. I want to point out to the board with respect to GBA as well as our other policy JBA that the list of the protected groups in these non-discrimination policies is consistent with the policy that has already been passed by the board. Policy AC, which provides very clearly the list of protected classes that are being protected by the school district's policies and procedures. At the last board meeting, there was a question with respect to whether or not military status could be included in this policy. I have reviewed the general non-discrimination policies under federal and state law. Military status is not included as a protected group under state law. There is a specific statute, USERRA, which applies to protecting employment practices and leave policies for those who have served, whom I know all of our administration as well as our board has incredible gratitude for the service of our military. But with respect to that, there is and will be, under CASB's proposed policies, a policy that will be proposed under our policy G policies that address the protections afforded under USERRA. So for that reason, I don't think it is necessary to include military status under this policy. I will say that it could be, but in my view, it is not necessary. And that is kind of the extent of my comments with respect to this, especially since we have a policy which I believe will be policy, well, I'm sorry, I thought I had that number here, but I think it's GBIS or something like that, that will be presented to the board in the near future under our proposed policies that will be forthcoming from CASB.
And the policy that Ms. Clemish is referring to is policy AC that we passed, which specifically talks about non-discrimination, equal opportunity. And so her advocacy is that we maintain consistency, which I think really is important because that's why we took on this project to begin with, is to really make sure we were consistent and in alignment. And we always have to remember that we can always come back to these policies after this project is done to amend, revise, update, and that's what should happen. Policy should be breathing all the time so that we can come back and make sure that they are the best effort in terms of protecting staff or making sure they're reflective of our practices. So with that, I'm going to actually ask for a motion, then I will give time for some discussion and questions if there are any. So a motion to adopt policy GBA.
I make a motion to adopt policy GBA.
Policy GBA, motion to be approved by Holtzman, second by Lemieux. Any further discussions or questions? Seeing none, let's vote. Chancho Shore.
Aye.
Graziano.
Aye.
Holtzman.
Aye.
Lemieux.
Aye.
Lung.
Aye.
Ray, aye. That passes unanimously. Next policy is GBAA, sexual harassment. Mrs. Clemish?
The only comment I'd make in this regard is that I believe there was a comment that may have been posted from a contributor to the comment gathering we have applied throughout the district with respect to going through the district's website, whether or not we should be referencing protections based on gender in addition to sex, or to substitute the term gender for sex. And I just want to point out that policy GBAA specifically addresses sexual harassment. The federal law as well as state law uses the term sex as the protected group or the protected status, but that this policy does specifically address under sexual harassment prohibited, the second paragraph, that prohibition against sexual harassment applies whether the harassment is between people of the same or different gender. So it does recognize that term, consistent with state law, as well as the concern or the comment that was raised.
Very good. And I would just, Mrs. Clemish was referring to the feedback that we've gathered from our community. As you remember, we put out email blast and we allow all community to react to the policies that we're considering. And I would also make a general comment regarding some of that feedback, because I think that we see a lot of that will show up in our regulatory policies. And again, just to remind our community that these policies are the launching policies that launch operations into looking at more detail about how they actually implement these. And a lot of the feedback we received were really those, I think, implementation questions. How are you going to do it? And that will come from our superintendent's policies as well. So I do want the community to know that we appreciate the feedback we've gotten. It really has caused us to engage in some good discussion, and certainly Mrs. Clemish has been doing a lot of pondering from that feedback as well. So I will, at this time, entertain a motion to adopt policy GBAA, sexual harassment.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Moved by Holtzman, second by Graziano. Any questions or discussion? Okay, seeing none, let's vote. Chancho Shore.
Aye.
Graziano.
Aye.
Holtzman.
Aye.
Lemieux.
Aye.
Lung.
Aye.
Ray, aye. That policy passes unanimously. Next policy is JB, equal educational opportunities. This is more of a policy that directly relates to students. Mrs. Clemish?
Again, the list of protected groups is consistent with our other policy, policy AC, and with respect to the general outline applicable to a board policy like this, it identifies the means by which the board is directing the superintendent to monitor the areas in relationship to implementation of this policy.
Very good. And so not only does this policy, for the public's knowledge, not only is it about equal opportunities, but it also identifies everything from curriculum to training to student access, district support, student evaluation instruments, and discipline are all a part of this policy to ensure that those protective classes are, or those categories or classes are protected, but also that there is indeed a way that we do that in all fairness and with integrity. So that's this policy specific for our students. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adopt this policy.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Lemieux, seconded by Graziano. Any further questions or discussion regarding this particular policy? Seeing none, let's vote. Chancho Shore.
Aye.
Graziano.
Aye.
Holtzman.
Aye.
Lemieux.
Aye.
Lung.
Aye.
Ray, aye. That policy also passes unanimously. Next policy is JBA, titled Non-Discrimination, Non-Harassment of Students. Mrs. Clemish?
Again, this policy includes non-discrimination, non-harassment of students as identified under the law. The protected groups are consistent with policy AC and the remainder of our policies. I do want to point out with respect to this policy that there are other policies in Section J which address harassment of students or conduct that may be uncivil or need to be addressed in the context of having a negative impact on a school's learning and environment. Additionally, there are other policies that address bullying, which may not necessarily fall under or be with the intent or the purpose of discriminating or harassing based on these protected groups, but there are other policies that will be forthcoming to the board that will address that kind of behavior. Those policies would include JIC, JICDA regarding student conduct, and JI and JIA, which address student rights and responsibilities. Additionally, we have a policy JICB, which addresses the prevention of bullying in our schools, which also addresses bullying conduct in the school environment. So there will be a combinations of policies that will be forthcoming in addition to this policy, which will address harassment that may not fall within the definition of the protections afforded under this policy, address conduct that may be of concern to parents and students in the school setting.
Ms. Clements, it looks like in this policy, we've emphasized, or not emphasized, but rather added, as far as a protected group, the students who are eligible for special education services. That was intentional on our part.
It was intentional, so that would be consistent with policy AC, the remainder of the policies, which afford protections. And that stems from the federal law, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, as well as Section 504 of the Rehab Act and the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Very good. Director Lung, question?
I get this question from my constituents. In page 2, almost close to the bottom above of notes and training, the paragraph above that is say any student found to have engaged in prohibited harassment shall be subject to disciplinary, including how come it's only single out student? So what happens if staff or third party is found to engage in this sort of harassment? It does not list that out, it only lists out student.
Ms. Clements, so the question is about why is that only identifying students as being somebody that we focus on in terms of this prohibited harassment?
This policy is designed to address student conduct. It also applies to address students' conduct towards teachers, as well as identifying that students should report any form of harassment, as I understand it, or discrimination. The policy GBA applies to staff conduct. And that is why I think in this policy, and I'm sorry, Director Lung, I'm not identifying the exact paragraph you're referring to.
It's right above the subtopic notice and training.
Okay.
But I think what Ms. Clements is saying is that all the J policies are really geared for student-specific, where the G policies are geared towards staff and adults.
That's correct. I agree, Director Ray.
Well, then I'm getting a little bit confused because in the page 1, under the district's commitment, the second paragraph, it says that it shall be a violation of policy for any staff member to harass student or for student to harass other student through contact or communications, blah, blah, blah. And so it is not only for student harassing student or student harassing anybody. It seems like it's also applied for staff member harassing student. And further down, it also mentioned about third party. I'm sorry, I lost track of that paragraph. But just by reading that, it seems like it should go both ways. Again, in the second paragraph, almost close towards the end, it only shows what student will be subject to if they harass somebody, but it does not say that if the staff harass student, what are they subject to. Looking at that policy in page 1, I think this policy applies to both ways.
So Director Long is questioning or kind of challenging that thought that this is only for students, that this also appears that staff is listed at the beginning, and wondering why there isn't the prohibitive statement regarding staff near the end.
And again, I just remind the board that policy GBA and policies within section G address appropriate responses to staff's conduct to discrimination and harassment. This policy is designed to provide information to students with respect to their rights to be free of harassment in the school setting, but also to apprise students that they could be subject or may be subject to disciplinary action if they engage in discriminatory or harassing conduct towards their peers. Additionally, I'm looking at policy AC, which is our general non-discrimination policy, and that policy addresses and includes a paragraph which states that any student or employee who engages in unlawful discrimination or harassment shall be disciplined according to applicable board policies, and the district shall take reasonable action to restore lost educational or employment opportunities to the victims. So our policies are designed to focus on educating the applicable group based upon the section of the policies they're contained in.
And I think what made it clear for me, Mrs. Clemish, is that we assume this is a student audience who's reading this policy. So if a student should be able to look at the policy, go, a staff member can't harass me. And then GBA says, but if a staff member does harass me, there's a policy for the teacher or the educator or the staff member that really spells out what the consequences might be for harassing a student. So this is really intended for the student to view it from their perspective. Director Lung?
Well, if this is the case, I don't want students read this policy or their parents read this policy to think that this is only one way, because I can even confuse myself. Can we do some sort of like maybe linkage to that, for staff policy, please reference this policy somewhere down here. Again, just want to make the clarifications to people knows that it go both ways. It doesn't only go one way or the others, only to the student.
There are cross-references to all of the other applicable policies here, and when we finish our final review of all of these policies, there'll be something similar to an audit or something like that to make sure that we're cross-referencing the appropriate policies. But at this time, as you can see at the cross-references under the legal references to this policy, we do cross-reference AC and GBA, which both would be applicable to identifying that staff would be subject to appropriate disciplinary responses.
Director Chancha-Shore.
Question. Someone sent to me that we have the language creed and religion, and do we need both of those words, or are they synonyms?
Again, without getting into the specifics, we look to track the statutory language. And so I spent a good part of this afternoon reviewing again the statutory language in Colorado law and federal law, and those terms are used, I believe, in Colorado law.
All right. So I'm going to entertain a motion, and the motion can either be to adopt as written, or Director Lung, if you're feeling strongly, you may make a motion as well. So is there a motion? Then we'll again have time for discussion afterwards. A motion to adopt the policy?
I make a motion to adopt the policy as written.
Motion made by Holtzman, seconded by Lemieux. Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. Chancha-Shore.
Aye.
Graziano.
Aye.
Holtzman.
Aye.
Lemieux.
Aye.
Lung.
Aye.
Ray, aye. All right, next policy is JBC. Again, a policy that's focused specifically on students' sexual harassment. Mrs. Clemish.
I have no real additional comments with respect to this policy. This is designed to specifically address student sexual harassment applicable to students, and is very similar to the policy that I believe was drafted very generally with respect to staff, which is contained in the GB or the GBAA in the G section of the policies.
All right, motion to adopt policy.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Graziano, seconded by Holtzman. Any further questions or discussion? Director Lung?
Well, same as the policy that I talked about previously. So in this policy, in page 2, it again only towards the bottom, the last paragraph, it only say any student found to have engaged in a sexual harassment, something. I just make sure that we assure you that we are not only punishing our student, and as our legal counselor said that this is also equally applied to anybody that is doing harm to our student, no matter whether they are the staff or anybody. But as our legal counsel said that this is in another policy, and that will be referenced once all the policy revisions is done. And again, I just want to make sure that this is the second time this question is being raised. How come only student is being set in policy? But I think the legal counsel said it very clearly, and I want to assure the public that we treat anybody the same way, no matter whether the student or the staff or anybody is not tolerated. We are not just only single out the student.
And again, as Mrs. Clemens said, there's a parallel policy for staff. So I think that's what we need to make sure that that's clear, Director Lung, because I hear what you're saying from the layperson's eye. If we had just read this policy only, I would think only students are the ones that we're talking about. But because we have a parallel policy that's in the G section, that also talks about that as well.
Because I don't think the title truly reflects this is only for students, because the title only say GBC sexual harassment. It doesn't say sexual harassment, something related to students. So I think when people read this, they may get a little bit confused. Why? And also in the content, it also address the harassment by just like in the second paragraph, it say that it shall be a violation of policy for any staff member to harass student or student to harass other student. So it seems like it is talking about staff harassing student and student harassing other student, but towards the end of the second page, it only addressed the student. But I mean, our legal counsel is absolutely correct that the other policy does address that, but you're absolutely correct, President Ray. For laymen who read this, looking at title, looking at the content, it shows some discrepancy and said that we only focus on the students' punishment. So I want to absolutely assure that anybody who worrying that no matter whether student or staff or anybody else will be subjects.
So just when you look at the format of a policy, it's divided up in sections. So this policy, the cover page will say Section J, students, and then Section G, personnel. So I think what's difficult is exactly, Director Lung, what you're challenged with is that when we pull this out of context, it feels like, wait a minute, where's the parallel? Where's the other policies for staff? But when you put it all back together again, it delineates very clearly that these are student policies. These are personnel policies. So we just need to put it back in context. We're kind of pulling it out, magnifying it for a moment, then we need to put it back in its proper perspective.
But I'm sorry, but I think it to be fair for the general public who pull this up to look at that. I mean, we have been in this for a while, and we know which policy related to student, which policy related to staff. But for people who are looking at that, it's fair for them to ask the question.
Yeah.
But
general public, though, will say,
right,
like
right.
Mrs. Taylor, when we have the site, it'll say J policy, it'll say students. So just know that when we navigate that, it's a little different than how we're looking at it. But I definitely appreciate your emphasis about making sure that the public knows there's more than just this policy to deal with sexual harassment. All right, did we have a motion to, we did, and it was seconded, so let's go ahead and vote unless there's further questions. Chancho Shore?
Aye.
Graziano?
Aye.
Holtzman?
Aye.
Lemieux?
Aye.
Lung?
Aye.
Ray, aye. All right, that takes care of our policies. We'll move on to reports, and I have several things to throw out at you guys regarding some upcoming events. So let me begin with on December, gotta get my notes together here. So December 2nd is our gala event when we will be swearing in our new board directors, taking oath of office, and we will be celebrating our exiting board directors. And so it will be held on that day at 6:30. It'll be a reception format. So we will allow any public that wants to come and celebrate with us during that time, but that'll be solely the purpose. It will not be a board meeting. It will be, of course, noticed and it will be, of course, publicized, but we hope everyone can be there on that Monday at 6:30. I also want to announce that the new board will be seated on December 3rd. starting with our 5 o'clock board meeting. And at that time, we also reorganize. We reorganize for officer positions. So I would just entertain that if you are thinking about wanting to be an officer or a new officer or changing your title, that would be the time to do it. So let me know if you're pondering that. Also remember that we're a little off with how our board meetings are falling. So Thursday is the next meeting in December, Thursday, December 12th. So keep that in mind as well. Another date that's up is November 21st. Is when the Board of County Commissioners are announcing their grant that they're providing to us for security and mental health. And so that is at 4:30 at their boardroom on November 21st. And then, let's see, we also want to let you know that November 18th, I will be starting to do some guiding of onboarding with our new directors, something that I don't think some of us had in the past. So we're going to be very intentional this time around. So if for some reason you missed the onboarding, November 18th at 4 o'clock will be a time that we will start actually being very intentional about how we onboard our new directors. So that's November 18th at 4 o'clock. You're more than welcome to come. It will be a noticed meeting as well, so you're more than welcome to come to that. Also, there is an invitation from our Board of County Commissioners to sit on an interview panel that actually selects the trustees for the library board. I sat on that a year ago and would highly recommend it. It's a great way to get to know some other entities like our library district. There's other agents, there's like town council people that sit on that as well, and so it's a great way to get to know some other people because you're locked in a room for 12 hours and you listen to a lot of people who would be interested in running for a trustee position in the board. So would be interested. Was that a hand? I saw Chancho Shore or or Graciano?
You all see that.
Elizabeth isn't here, so.
That's right. In her defense. Also, as we're reorganizing that December meeting, also keep in mind that there are now some openings for committees. So wherever you see Vogel and Lemieux, those are some openings that you may want to consider. Certainly, we will be inviting our new board directors to consider filling into those vacancies as well. But just that's also an opportunity for you to communicate to me what you're thinking so that I can kind of help navigate the reorganization on December 3rd. I think that is the main thing. I do want to, I know we've done a lot of loving on Director Lemieux, and I'm not ready to do that yet, so I'll just say that because I will break down, and I don't want to do that at 9:30 at night. But we will, we do, honestly, the words that you heard today from your husband all the way to several community members to staff singing your praises and your accolades are so well-deserved. You have been a catalyst for some incredible change in the system, and I would say that you are going to be missed greatly and tremendously. So just wanted to acknowledge Director Lemieux. All right, with that, other board reports, other things that you need to share? Director Chancho Shore?
I'm going to be in denial about being kicked by Director Lemieux for the last couple of years, and I'll miss that immensely in her leadership and opportunity for growth that she's given me. DAC will be meeting next Tuesday night, November 19th, from 6:30 to 8:30. Prior to that meeting, there's a budget conversation with the budget committee from the DAC. I think that starts at 4:30. Am I correct, Matt? 4:30. So we'll be having that conversation, then we'll have the DAC meeting. At the DAC meeting, we have quite a few things: site and lead focus update, membership recommendation. We did, when Director Vogel and I sat on another interview committee a couple weeks ago or last week, and there are some recommendations for the teacher representative. Scott Smith will also be giving a school finance presentation. Table topics are specific to the parent complaint process, and Mr. Knight and Ms. Stevenson will be presenting. And then we have already planned the December meeting as well. I won't be in attendance because I'll be out of town at a school, at a work function. But the majority of that meeting will be a social event. Matt, I'm looking at you to make sure I'm correct. And the social event, I'm wondering if we wanted to extend our board invitation to all board directors. It's a social event for the volunteers from the SACs and the DACs. They'd also like to invite other committee members to a social event that have worked in board committees for the purpose of just getting to know each other, seeing each other, and celebrating. So that is happening on December 10th? 10th. And I think I'll email you the times, and opportunity is available for you to attend as well. There isn't any other business necessarily on that agenda.
Very good. One item I forgot on my report, as we're doing our onboarding, we will be creating a hard copy of all our board policies for our new directors to have. I know that some of you prefer that, and so Tammy is actually going to do that for us for that meeting on the 18th. So if you would like a hard copy, keeping in mind that all the board policies are being revised from J on up, but I think for our new members, it would be helpful for them to have that. So so Christina Chancho Shore, his hand is up. Anybody else need a hard copy of Director Long? And really make sure you're going to use it, because we're taking down lots of trees by doing it. So it's a big fat thing, so we will expect to see you carry it in here every single night. No, it won't. It's fatter than that drawer. So.
Okay, then I won't be carrying it, so I'll take it back.
So Chancho Shore is our only taker on that. All right. Other board reports. Director Holtzman.
Okay. So I am going to say thank you and to Director Lemieux next time. And many times. You'll be here on the 2nd. So, but no, I just couldn't be more grateful for what you've done for our students. So, I have a few things. The LRPC is doing great work as usual. At their last meeting, they also took some time to meet briefly with their subcommittees. There's a boundary and capacity group that got together and was looking more closely at the outreach plan for our capacity and boundary work. And it's really exciting and getting closer to happening. I think they gathered some input from us, and they're making some final decisions. And I think that it's possible that survey may go out later this week, or hopefully soon, but maybe later this week. And if you have questions about that, let me know. We already did receive a presentation from our capacity and boundary consultant. You might remember, I think it was a couple of meetings ago. So this group is just kind of helping give feedback on the details of the survey and eventually the community meetings and that sort of thing. But I'd be happy to keep you informed about that. In terms of like the partnership of Douglas County governments and CASB. They've intersected a bit lately because I think I know that I mentioned to you guys that I was able to testify at the Capitol and in front of the interim school finance committee, which our very own Representative Bailey is a member of. Saw him again at the Partnership of Douglas County Governments, which thank you, Dr. Tucker, and I guess to all of us that we hosted the elected officials reception. And Director Ray will be
presiding,
taking the gavel for the next year, so that's great. But as a result of that, Representative Baisley is going to be meeting with us with our CFO, and I'm going to go also, and we're just going to talk about how some of the proposals that are being presented at the legislature would specifically affect Douglas County School District. REMSOL is still going strong, and we have our next meeting, I think, right before Thanksgiving. And then the only other thing is I'm still attending the Douglas County Gifted Education Advisory Council. They meet again this week, and they're very excited and really hope to have some time with the board at some point to share all the exciting things and the work that they're doing. So I'll make it a commitment to speak again about that at our agenda planning and see if there's a way we could fit them in at some point. So.
Other board reports? Director Lemieux, you're on.
So I can't leave without making a couple of recommendations, because, that's how I roll. I believe I've asked for it before, so I'm just going to leave these ideas in your head for possible upcoming agenda items. I think you need to request an update on the budget for IT, specifically how much we're spending on teacher training and how and which department is in charge of IT training specifically, and then what holdover spending from the development of Inspired is occurring, and do we still pay for large amounts of storage that is no longer needed for data collection. I also believe you should request an update on Workday. What's the budget? How well is it working? What is its strengths and weaknesses? I think you should find out what internet provider we are using and when was the last RFP for that. And when was the last RFP on DCSD banking done, and what needs determined what bank we actually use. So that's my business part. This has been a huge honor for me, and probably one of the biggest challenges of my life. I wasn't elected to be anybody's friend, and clearly that was a challenge, because I do value people liking me. It's really important to me. And so to be in a position that I couldn't be people's friends, I had to think about the system and our students and our employees and how that could positively impact our district and our community was always at the back of my mind. And as much as I would have loved to have just sat up here and been sunshine and light and happy and everybody's best friend, that was the biggest challenge for me. That said, I am blessed from almost 10 years now of creating relationships with people that I would have never had the opportunity to meet had Douglas County not gone through the challenges that it went through. And I think what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. And looking at the strategic plan, looking at the leadership of Dr. Tucker, looking at new faces and old faces that are working incredibly hard on behalf of this district and on behalf of our children, I truly, with all of my heart, believe that Douglas County is better and stronger because of and in spite of what we've just been through. So I truly hope that positive momentum, that the culture is from the bottom up and the top down and everybody in between. We'll never please all the people all the time, but that can't be our goal. Our goal has to be the system. And that's a challenge for 7 people sitting in this spot, because that means you're going to disappoint people. You're going to hurt people's feelings. You're going to make people mad. But in the end, as long as you're doing the work that is best for the system, because this system affects children from preschool all the way up through our bridge program, which is 21 years old. And so it has been an absolute honor for me to serve in a capacity that I was entrusted to do. I truly did it. I took my job very, very seriously. I'll miss the free meals that I didn't have to cook twice a month. And I really will. I'm going to miss each and every one of you, literally each and every one of you in this room and beyond. And so for that, all I can do is say thank you for your support. Thank you for challenging me, and thank you for putting up with me. And I wish absolutely the very best on Douglas County School District. You guys work hard for it, and you've earned it, and our kids earn it. And I hope we can be that guiding light for the state and for the nation. Thank you very much.
All right. So Director Lemieux, symbolically, we're going to let you do your final motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Seconded by?
Second.
I have to recognize Wendy Vogel. She unfortunately had to work tonight. She was one of the lucky ones that got a job right away. I'm still looking. She has been the most amazing board director I have ever seen. She always shows integrity and compassion, and she is brilliant. And I'm not sure people understand how smart she is and how dedicated she was to the work that she did. And she represented Douglas County School District beyond what anybody could expect. And so even though that she hasn't been here the past couple of meetings, Wendy, I thank you for your service, for your friendship, and for your leadership. So Wendy's got to get it.
Motion's been made by Lemieux and seconded by Vogel in her absence. Well, let's vote. Chancha Shore.
Aye.
Graziano. Holtzman.
Aye.
Lung.
Aye.
Ray. Aye. And Lemieux.
Aye. Peace out.